Vol 2, Chapter 1465, Rescue Operations. 1. The air was filled with the sound of whooshing as Zhang Jiarui, with his muscular build and fists the size of bowls, mimicked the sound effects of their latest project. His movements were so vivid that one of the quad engineers, caught off guard, stumbled backward and landed on the ground with a thud. The room erupted in laughter, including the embarrassed engineer, who couldn't help but join in after rubbing his head. Over the past few days, the engineers from Kuat Power Dockyard had grown to see Zhang Jiarui not just as a colleague, but as a friend. Despite his intimidating appearance, Zhang was known for his warm heart, sunny disposition, and exceptional professional knowledge. Given the hints dropped by their superiors at Kuat, it was no surprise that everyone viewed him as their future leader, especially since it was almost certain that he would head the first project team once he officially joined Kuat Power Dockyard. With a smile, Zhang helped the fallen engineer to his feet before returning to the console. He pointed towards Thor's mecha, explaining with great enthusiasm, "Look, at this moment, the energy beam is aligning with the Kyber crystal. Let's initiate the focusing process." The engineers nodded, though there was no actual activity on the Thor's mecha side. "Start focusing. Adjust the focus frequency. Make sure the coefficient doesn't exceed 3.03. Zhang instructed. An engineer quickly pressed a few buttons on the console and reported, "The current coefficient is 3.01. Focus is complete." Zhang turned to him, visibly frustrated. "What are you doing? How could the coefficient be 3.01? The engineer, taken aback, replied, "Isn't it supposed to be lower than 3.03? This is a weapon we're dealing with. Precision is crucial," Zhang scolded. "We cannot afford any margin for error. This is a fundamental principle of weapon design. Let's start over. Adjust the focus frequency." "Right. The current coefficient is 3.03. The focus is complete," the engineer corrected himself. "Launch," Zhang shouted, hitting a button that wasn't actually connected to anything, while still providing his own sound effects. Boom! Boom! The engineers clapped, though their faces betrayed their embarrassment. "All right, the test firing is over. Let's check the energy nodes," Zhang said, turning off a series of switches, which in turn stopped the energy charging on Thor's mecha in the adjacent laboratory. "What's there to check? It's as good as new since it wasn't actually launched," one engineer remarked, clearly disheartened. "We might as well have done a data simulation directly on the terminal instead of this mock experiment." "Don't lose heart," Zhang encouraged, patting him on the shoulder. Even though it was a simulated launch, the process was identical, minus the actual firing. We've thoroughly deduced the entire process, and rigorous checks have been done on the data and formulas. Thor's sword is essentially complete. It's not the same. The gap between theory and reality is too vast. No matter how accurate our calculations are, they can't guarantee the finished product will meet standards. A real test on the prototype is essential, an older engineer argued, shaking his head in frustration. "Discussing this now is pointless. I'm going to report this to our superiors." "Me too. My mentor is the senior technical director at Kuat Power Dock. I'll have him pressure the management," another engineer chimed in. "Exactly. According to our calculations, Thor's sword should have more power than a heavy-duty turbo laser cannon. But considering its size, we can't be certain without a real test." The engineers were abuzz with excitement over the new weapon technology they had just discussed, likening its power to a quarter of a turbo laser cannon. They were adamant that such a revolutionary weapon must be developed under their guidance. Without hesitation, a group of them set off to ensure that the project would remain within their department. Meanwhile, Zhang Jiarui, with a mysterious smile, made his way to another laboratory to inspect the Thor mech, a colossal machine that was under development. His departure went unnoticed by the remaining engineers, who were deeply engrossed in their work, oblivious to his actions. Zhang Jiarui approached an engineering robot and climbed up the scaffolding to examine an energy node closely. It was then that the robot, in a hushed tone, informed him of incoming reinforcements. The voice belonged to General Kalani. "They reached out to you?" Zhang Jiarui inquired, feigning ignorance. "No, I intercepted their signal," General Kalani replied. "I've managed to connect to the communication device. Now, when I return to my charging station each night, I can briefly communicate with the outside world. Moreover, I've successfully infiltrated the monitoring system and can control certain minor operations without drawing attention. Who are they? What's their plan? Zhang Jiahui pressed for details. At this point, I'm not sure who they are or what they intend to do. I need to establish further contact tonight, General Kalani explained. All I know is that they arrived on a garbage ship and are currently in the Star Ring's waste disposal area. We must support their efforts as much as possible. What do you need me to do? Zhang Jiahui asked. It's best if you do nothing out of the ordinary to avoid suspicion. Continue drawing the engineer's attention while secretly completing the repairs on the Thor mech, General Kalani advised. Zhang Jiahui tightened a screw and remarked, the mech is operational, but it lacks a weapons system, which requires approval from Little Kuat. Additionally, the energy core installed doesn't match. It's uncertain if the engineers can persuade Little Kuat to change his mind. Elsewhere, in the Industrial Star Ring's garbage disposal workshop on Kuat Planet, a young girl named Kleist, a member of the Twilight Covenant, expressed her disgust at the foul smell. She sat on a broken suspension car engine, rapidly typing on a terminal keyboard, claiming she could only withstand the stench for 20 more minutes before passing out. Zhang Shucheng, standing nearby, pointed out that their location was an industrial waste area, which logically should not smell as bad as a domestic waste area. He also reminded Kleist that she had made a similar complaint an hour ago. Kleist, with a dramatic flair, insisted that this time she was serious, with only 19 minutes and 47 seconds left before she would faint. Zhang Shucheng, unfazed, recalled her making the same claim 59 minutes and 47 seconds earlier, prompting Kleist to jokingly curse him to never find a girlfriend. Shen Yuanhao, another member of their group, joined the conversation, suggesting that Kleist's remark was not a curse, but a realistic judgment. He then inquired if they had established contact with the robot, General Kalani, who had reached out to them the previous day. Kleist explained that they would have to wait 3 more hours to communicate with General Kalani, as he could only connect with the outside world when on his charging stand. She admired the robot's ability to communicate despite being in a restricted environment, and mentioned she was currently hacking into the system. Shen Yuanhao covered his forehead and sighed in frustration. I should have known better than to trust you kids. How could anyone believe that the security system of Kuat Power Dock could be breached by a child? To his astonishment, Kleist's eyes sparkled with excitement as she pressed a button on her device. Ha! It worked! I've managed to get us onto their authorized list. Shen Yuanhao's jaw dropped in disbelief. That's impossible. How did you manage to do that? Zhang Shucheng couldn't help but smile at the scene. It shouldn't come as a surprise, he said. While Kleist may not be able to predict the future of the real world, she possesses a unique ability to foresee the outcomes of electronic systems. She's not just a child, she's a prodigy. Shen Yuanhao stood there, dumbfounded, as he processed the revelation. The scholars around him, who had been skeptically observing the situation, were equally taken aback. It was a moment that challenged their preconceived notions about the capabilities of the younger generation, especially in the realm of technology. Kleist, with a triumphant grin, turned to the group. See? Never underestimate the power of innovation and a fresh perspective. Sometimes, the most complex problems have the simplest solutions. You just need to know where to look. The room fell into a thoughtful silence as they all considered the implications of Kleist's success. It was a stark reminder that in a world filled with magic and mystery, the boundaries of possibility were constantly being redefined. This chapter does not exist, sadly. Let's proceed to the next chapter. This chapter does not exist, sadly. Let's proceed to the next chapter. This chapter does not exist, sadly. Let's proceed to the next chapter. Vol 2, Chapter 1469, Rescue Operations, 5, 6. The Lack Ghouls unleashed havoc across the Kuat Industrial Star Ring, catching the Kuat security forces completely off guard. They had never anticipated an attack from within, especially one so ferocious. Traditionally, both the Galactic Republic and the Kuat drive yards prioritized the defense of Kuat Planet above all else. The Kuat system always maintained a formidable fleet, including behemoths like the Commander class, the Governor class, and the Prosecutor class ships. Despite their age, these ships, measuring 8,000 meters, 4,000 meters, and 2,500 meters respectively, were considered reliable assets for galaxy defense. The Kuat system boasted more than 10 of these giant ships, a force deemed sufficient by the Supreme Strategic Command of the Galactic Republic to confront 300-kilometer-class main battleships without needing external assistance. Moreover, Kuat planet's population was a modest 3.6 billion, a strategic choice to decentralize mid- and downstream industries across other systems. This not only tied Kuat more closely to the Galactic Republic, but also simplified the planet's defense strategy. In contrast, the planet Lundali, with its staggering population of 600 billion, pursued a different development path. Lundali had a nearly complete set of industrial and processing systems, requiring only raw materials and supplies from external sources. This relative independence emboldened Lundali to consider rebellion against the Galactic Republic, a step Kuat drive yards could not risk without severing vital ties to the Republic. Despite the formidable outer defenses of the Kuat system, the internal crisis posed by the Lack ghouls within the industrial star ring exposed a critical vulnerability. The security forces, caught unprepared, found themselves ill-equipped to combat the threat. The Kuat Galaxy Defense Fleet, comprising over 40 frigates and 300 fighters, scrambled for a response, but found their conventional tactics ineffective against the agile Lack ghouls. The Lack ghouls, empowered by the Sith artifact Muir Amulet, possessed strength and speed beyond natural limits, with skin capable of resisting blaster rifle shots. Eliminating a single Rack ghoul required concentrated fire from several shooters, a task further complicated by the impracticality of deploying armored forces within the Star Ring's cramped confines. The industrial Star Ring's layout, dominated by factories, equipment, and warehouses, with only narrow pedestrian passages, rendered traditional ground and air military responses futile. The security forces faced a dire situation, with insufficient firepower and no viable means to pursue the ghouls through the Star Ring's labyrinthine structure. In this desperate scenario, the only hope rested on the fixed defensive turrets installed at strategic locations. However, even these defenses were not designed for the unique challenge posed by the Lack ghouls, leaving the security forces scrambling for a solution to contain the escalating crisis. In the midst of chaos, where turrets struggled to contain the outbreak of Rack ghouls, a garbage transport ship navigated through the pandemonium with an air of inconspicuousness. Its cargo hold, not fully sealed, allowed some trash to spill out, making it an unappealing sight for the high-ranking residents and security forces of planet Kuat. Yet, this spacecraft carried a very high-level security authorization, granting it unimpeded access wherever it went. It's just ahead. According to the navigation, that's the Education and Training Center. Shen Yuanhao, the pilot of the junk vessel, announced loudly, his voice tinged with urgency. Damn it, there are at least 20 fire control radars targeting us. 007 has secured the authorization for us. We can just fly straight there. Crest, operating the terminal, her face pale and her body trembling from the overwhelming situation. For a child, the chaos unfolding was a terrifying spectacle. The authorization is for a scientific research vessel? Are you kidding me? They're on a garbage ship. Shen Yuanhao exclaimed in disbelief upon seeing the authorization. However, catching the frightened atmosphere among the children, he quickly reassured, "This authorization level is top-notch. No worries, we'll just fly over there with confidence. Ha-ha!" 007, working from another direction, had managed to secure the authorization by leveraging his connection with the wife of the area security director. This allowed him temporary command over the security forces before his actions were discovered. "Has there been any update on those monsters wreaking havoc everywhere?" Shen Yuanhao inquired. "I can sense that these monsters are linked to the Force, a very dark and malevolent aspect of it," Zhang Shucheng communicated telepathically, his abilities unable to penetrate the aura surrounding the creatures. "I've gathered some information through communications," Crest added. "These monsters are swift, strong, impervious to bullets, and their scratch can infect others, turning them into new monsters. They can even pilot spaceships and handle firearms. Wait a minute. Doesn't this sound a lot like our T-virus? Shen Yuanhao pondered, rubbing his forehead in confusion. No, these creatures are far more formidable than any variant produced by the T-virus. Even tyrants and lickers stand no chance against them. Perhaps only the Injury Avengers could stand a chance, but the infectious nature of these beings makes their numbers nearly limitless, Crest explained, shaking her head. How do you know so much about the Umbrella Pharmaceutical Group? Shen Yuanhao asked, suspicion lacing his tone. Crest responded with a nonchalant smile and a shrug, her demeanor slightly more relaxed now. Well, perhaps these monsters could be considered reinforcements, Shen Yuanhao mused. But it's best we avoid any contact with them. Xiao Cheng, can your telepathy locate and direct these monsters to attack the person involved? In the midst of the chaos, Zhang Shucheng revealed, I can only ascertain that our adversary wields formidable power. He's immensely strong, to the point where unless he senses our presence and chooses to reach out, penetrating his defenses is beyond our capabilities. Yesterday, you mentioned encountering a Jedi Knight or a similarly untouchable entity where your father is held captive, correct? Shen Yuanhao inquired further, seeking clarification. Yes, that's correct, Zhang Shucheng confirmed. Then it's settled. We'll confront him. Karina, prepare yourself. It's time to take action. Shen Yuanhao declared, his scarred face twisting into a menacing grin. He aggressively manipulated the controls, steering their dilapidated spaceship towards the Education and Training Center, now engulfed in darkness due to a power outage. Meanwhile, deep within the confines of the Education and Training Center, in the engineering laboratories, General Kalani, an engineering robot, approached Zhang Jiarui. Zhang was engrossed in his work on the Thor mech. As per the action plan we discussed yesterday, it's time to initiate our move, General Kalani whispered, his robotic voice barely audible over the hum of machinery. Despite the apparent calm, the security level here has been escalated to its maximum, he added. We must act accordingly. It's only a matter of time before Kuat's forces attempt to extract me from this facility, Zhang Jiarui responded, his focus unwavering as he continued his work on the mech. Over the past few days, I've managed to override other engineering robots during their charging cycles. They've been instrumental in repairing the Thor mech. It's now operational, albeit lacking a weapons system and external armor. Should we encounter heavy resistance, our situation could become perilous, General Kalani reported. It's a risk we'll have to take. If it comes down to it, we're prepared to make a stand. Death is a price we're willing to pay, Zhang Jiarui declared, his determination evident as he clenched his fists. Suddenly, a squad of heavily armed Kuat security force sold ears burst into the room. The squad leader called out for Dr. Zhang, but was met with silence. A quick inspection revealed all the robots incapacitated and the staff unconscious. This is impossible. Surveillance showed everything as normal just moments ago, the officer exclaimed, bewildered. The surveillance system must have been compromised, one of the soldiers suggested. Secure the area. He can't have gone far, the officer commanded, sending his men to scour the facility. In that instant, a blinding searchlight and the roar of an engine heralded the arrival of an imposing figure. With a thunderous crash, Karina, a monstrous being resembling a dinosaur and clad in armored combat gear, breached the facility's defenses. The sight of her sent the Kuat security forces into a panic, their shots deflecting harmlessly off her scales. Laughing derisively, Karina charged, her force amplified by the bloodshed around her. She tore through the soldiers with ease, leaving a trail of destruction in her wake. The scene was a testament to her power and a grim reminder of the lengths to which they were willing to go to rescue Zhang Shucheng's father. Karina's fury intensified, transforming her already formidable stature into something monstrous. Standing nearly 35 meters tall, she resembled a humanoid tyrannosaurus, a testament to the terrifying synergy between the Inchori, known as the galaxy's most formidable warriors, and the raw power of the Force. Her path of destruction was marked by the use of her natural weapons, claws and sharp teeth, which she employed in a display of primal savagery. Despite carrying a metal handle over a meter in length on her back, Karina chose not to use it. Instead, she relied on the Force, which infused every scale on her body, providing an impenetrable shield against blaster fire. Any attempt to harm her was not only futile, but resulted in the attacker's own shots being deflected back at them. This reckless expenditure of force energy might have seemed wasteful, but Karina was unconcerned. Her assignment to the Del Rey satellite for force studies was precisely because of her immense, albeit chaotic, force potential. Unlike a Jedi Knight, who manipulates the force with finesse, Karina wielded her power like a sledgehammer, obliterating anything in her path. Her rampage through the base was unstoppable, leaving a trail of destruction and death. The Kuat security forces were powerless against her, and in a short span, hundreds had fallen. In desperation, the officers called for reinforcements. The response was swift. More than a dozen fighter jets and 5 frigates arrived, circling overhead. They dispatched additional soldiers, hoping to find an opportune moment to strike Karina down with their most potent airborne weaponry. This recent escalation only served to highlight the urgency of the situation, driving us to update more frequently in hopes of providing a resolution. We encourage our readers to engage actively with the story as it unfolds. Thank you for your continued support. Volume 2, Chapter 1470, Rescue Operations, Parts 7 and 8. Explosions rocked the area as a frigate, seizing an opportunity, opened fire upon spotting Karina nearing the building's exterior. The light turbo laser cannon unleashed its fury, demolishing the outer walls. Despite the protection offered by the Force, Karina was blasted outside, sustaining injuries from the powerful blast. However, the frigate's mission was abruptly redirected. It received orders to assist a factory 10 kilometers away, where Lok ghouls were reportedly causing havoc. With no time to waste, the patrol fleet immediately departed for the new location. In the meantime, Karina, fueled by determination, roared as she charged deeper into the base. Elsewhere within the base, a group of Kuat security soldiers patrolled anxiously. Suddenly, a flash of lightning struck from behind, rendering them unconscious before they could react. Emerging from the shadows, Xiao Yan appeared, dual pistols in hand, with Shen Yuanhao and Kleist following closely on a small floating platform. "The path ahead is blocked," Xiao Yan announced, pointing towards a security gate, her face alight with excitement and flushed from the thrill of combat. Kleist, seated on a hemispherical chair equipped with an anti-gravity device, looked significantly younger than his age, especially when compared to the precocious Xiao Yan. Despite being only a year younger, Kleist's petite stature made him appear no older than 6 or 7. Swiftly, he operated a terminal, and the security door slid open. "Xiao Yan, be cautious. I sense at least 100 guards nearby," Zhang Shucheng's voice echoed in their minds, his tone urgent. "Uncle 007 has diverted all available spaceships and fighter jets to our location, but enemy reinforcements are still on their way. He's now attempting to capture the regional security director." "Where's Karina?" Shen Yuanhao inquired, concern evident in his voice. "The situation is dire. My connection to her is weakening, and it seems a Jedi Knight is closing in on her. I've alerted her, but you must also hasten your efforts. The Force is signaling imminent danger," Zhang Shucheng replied, his voice laced with urgency. Hiding in a garbage disposal workshop, Zhang Shucheng, despite his young age, was the linchpin of their telepathic network, facilitating communication among the team members. His powerful telepathy allowed him to remain undetected by ordinary means, but he couldn't shake the feeling of being watched by an unseen force. A Jedi Knight, he suspected, was searching for him. Sweat drenched his body as he maintained the spiritual network, guiding the cooperation between Uncle 007 and Shen Yuanhao. Through strategic deception, Uncle 007 issued false orders, effectively preventing the Kuat security forces from concentrating their efforts, giving the team a fighting chance in their daring rescue operation. Their forces laid siege to the education and training base. Despite some reinforcements managing to enter the base, orders were issued through Agent 007 to have these troops encircle the area. Yet, they still couldn't pinpoint Shen Yuanhao's location. In an attempt to counter this, some security teams were dispatched to Karina's vicinity in a desperate, piecemeal effort, employing hit-and-run tactics. However, given the vastness of the area, spanning several square kilometers, locating him swiftly proved challenging. At this juncture, Shen Yuanhao and his team had already made their way to the base's control center. Kleist, demonstrating her hacking prowess, breached the system, unlocking the heavily fortified security gate of the control center. Meanwhile, Xiao Yan, cloaked in invisibility, slipped inside undetected and incapacitated the control center's personnel with a firearm. Kleist descended from the floating platform to the console, her fingers flying over the controls. She scrutinized the flood of messages on the screen and announced gravely, "The situation is dire. At least 3,000 soldiers are converging on our location. Let's rescue the Targ, and evacuate immediately," Shen Yuanhao commanded. "Where's Dr. Zhang Jiarui?" "Located him. He's in the engineering lab. And look at this. Thor's mech is causing chaos there. I'll unlock the safety doors for them," Kleist exclaimed upon witnessing the destruction Thor's mech was unleashing throughout the base. She swiftly manipulated the controls, opening the massive missile-resistant gate leading to the engineering laboratory. "You found my dad?" Zhang Shucheng was ecstatic. "Indeed, your Uncle Zhang should be inside that Thor mech. He's managed to escape as well. Let's go meet him now," Kleist responded promptly. Hiding in the garbage disposal workshop, Zhang Shucheng was overwhelmed with emotion, tears streaming down his face. Extending his telepathy, he immediately recognized a voice that filled him with warmth. Xiao Cheng, why are you here?" It was his father, Zhang Jiarui, calling out to him. Dad! Zhang Shucheng sobbed, his voice choked with emotion. After enduring a period marked by fear and dread, he was finally reunited with his father's voice. However, the intense wave of emotions made him vulnerable, and in a factory maze, a shadowy figure abruptly turned, its piercing gaze fixed on the garbage disposal workshop. "Xiao Cheng, why did you come here? Don't you realize the danger? If anything happened to you." Zhang Jiarui's voice was laced with concern and urgency. "Father, I couldn't just stand by and watch you fall into enemy hands," Zhang Shucheng replied. Mid-conversation, a chilling realization dawned on him, draining the color from his face. "Wait, how am I able to establish a telepathic connection with my father?" He pondered, suddenly aware of the previously obstructed telepathic power now inexplicably accessible. In a panic, he sent out a telepathic alert. "Sister Dinosaur, be careful. A Jedi Knight is approaching you." At that moment, Karina was deeply engrossed in combat, leaving a trail of bloodshed in her wake, with thousands of Kuat security personnel already fallen by her hand. Against the formidable combination of the galaxy's strongest warrior race and the Force, ordinary soldiers stood no chance. Suddenly, a wall nearby was cleaved open by a glowing red sword, its blade aiming a series of swift strikes at Karina's side. The attack unfolded in mere fractions of a second, too fast for any ordinary person to react. However, thanks to Zhang Shucheng's timely warning, Karina was instantly on guard. She dodged the incoming blade with agility that belied her massive stature. The blood-red sword left a searing trail several meters long on the metallic floor as Karina narrowly evaded the attack. From the breach in the wall, a figure emerged slowly, stepping into the light. Embedded in the wall was a man who appeared to be in his early 30s, exuding a fierce demeanor. His face was marked with battle scars, and he was clad in a black robe topped with an oddly shaped tall hat, reminiscent of a battleship's bow. In his grasp were two red lightsabers, distinct from the usual with their wing-shaped guards and a flat, sharp blade achieved through precise adjustments to the magnetic field constraints. A menacing smile played on his lips as he advanced step by step. Karina, having already risen to her feet, swiftly drew a 1-meter-long metal handle from behind her back. With a press of a button, the front part of the handle fanned out, and a plasma blade formed an axe blade along this shape. Her weapon was a light axe, a remarkable deviation from the standard lightsaber, both in design and manufacture. "Ah, an Injorian, and a powerful Force-sensitive at that. Fascinating specimen indeed. I can hardly wait to add you to my collection," the intruder said, his grin widening. Karina let out a deep, guttural roar, her breath scorching the air. Her instincts screamed danger, suggesting that this man posed a lethal threat. She could sense that her life was at grave risk. "You're not a Jedi," Karina accused, her voice thick with anger. Her Force presence swelled, her physic, all form expanding with her growing power. "Oh, how could you possibly mistake me for one of those lowly Jedi Knights?" the man scoffed mockingly. But since you're clearly no ordinary creature, allow me to introduce myself. I am the advisor to the speaker. You may call me Black Hole Klee, he said, his laughter chilling. Enjoli, Karina, she declared, charging forward with her light axe raised high. The weapon descended with such force that it cleaved the air itself, creating a vacuum in its wake. However, her attack was effortlessly parried by Black Hole's twin lightsabers. The collision unleashed a shockwave, sending debris flying in all directions. Beneath Black Hole's feet, the metal ground cratered, sinking more than a meter deep. Excellent, truly magnificent, a unique gem in the Milky Way, Black Hole exclaimed, his interest in Karina evident as if she were a prized artifact. Did you know? A few months back, I acquired another rarity, a fresh right hand from over 20,000 years ago. He seemed more like he was engaging in casual conversation than facing a formidable opponent. Imagine, a hand from 20,000 years ago, still alive. It belonged to a dark Jedi named Arden Forrest, who has been in slumber for millennia. Go to hell, Karina roared, launching another furious attack with her axe. But Black Hole effortlessly dodged, countering with a swift strike of his lightsaber that left a shallow cut on Karina's body. Despite her tough, scale-like skin, which was impervious to blaster fire, the lightsaber sliced through. The wound, though not deep, fueled Karina's rage. Her eyes burning with fury, she launched a relentless assault with her light axe. Despite the apparent vulnerability of Black Hole's lightsabers to her powerful weapon, they held firm, parrying each of her strikes without yielding an inch. Facing the formidable Karina, Black Hole couldn't help but marvel at her resilience. Ah, such a robust physique, truly a rare find. I must take care not to damage this addition to my collection, he said, a smirk playing on his lips. This time, I'm determined to secure a complete collection. Last time, Arden Lyn managed to escape, even after I severed her hand. Somehow, she found her way to the speaker and became an intelligence agent. Ha. You know, the story of that dark Jedi from 20,000 years ago is quite fascinating, Black Hole continued, effortlessly parrying Karina's attacks as if engaged in casual conversation. That fool Palpatine had no clue about Arden Lyn's true identity. Of course, I had no interest in enlightening him. This collection is mine to complete. Heh. Sooner or later, I'll capture her and add her to my collection room in her entirety. He pointed at Karina, his tone taking on a more sinister edge. But unlike you, I have no desire to see her dead. After all, a living relic from 20,000 years ago holds immeasurable value. A dead one, on the other hand, is merely dull. I intend to imprison her soul and take possession of her body. She will be condemned to eternally observe her own form, displayed in my collection room. Heh. Despite the menacing intent behind his words, there was something oddly dissonant about the way Black Hole's perverse and archaic speech contrasted with his fearsome appearance. Attachment 1 of Easter Egg Chapter, The Emperor's Advisor, Black Hole. Vol 2, Chapter 1471, Rescue Operations, 9. In the midst of the heated confrontation, Karina's fury escalated in response to the provocations from the adversary, known only as the Black Hole. Her rage manifested through the ferocious swings of her light axe, which she wielded with the speed and precision of a whirlwind. The axe's rapid movements created a blur, making it difficult to discern anything but its swift arcs. As her aggression intensified, so did her physical stature, growing until she towered nearly 3.8 meters tall, an imposing figure reminiscent of a formidable combat vehicle. The light axe in her grasp unleashed devastating power, its swings generating gusts imbued with primal force that etched numerous gashes and indentations into the surrounding terrain and structures. In this moment, Karina's might was such that she could dismantle an ATE walker into scrap within mere seconds. Yet, amidst this tempest of destruction, the Black Hole remained unshaken, a steadfast presence amidst chaos. Despite the disparity in their sizes, he effortlessly intercepted Karina's relentless assaults with his twin retro-style red lightsabers. His technique was not one of evasion, but of direct confrontation, skillfully parrying each of Karina's strikes. This display of prowess left no doubt that the Black Hole's strength surpassed Karina's by a significant margin. Meanwhile, in the engineering laboratory of the base, chaos reigned as the Thor mech rampaged unchecked. At first glance, the mech was barely recognizable due to the absence of its outer armor, revealing the intricate network of mechanical components beneath. In theory, a concentrated barrage from blaster rifles could potentially cripple these exposed systems, rendering the mech inoperative. However, the Thor mech, standing at a towering height of 20 meters, advanced with the force of a seismic tremor, instilling fear in all but the most disciplined of soldiers. Those who lacked the resolve to confront it were likely to flee, much like the Kuat security forces had done. "Over there! The laboratory's mainframe! Destroy it!" Zhang Jiarui, his muscular frame squeezed behind the pilot's seat, directed General Kalani, who was at the controls of the Thor mech. The mech's chest compartment opened, revealing dozens of data cables that Kalani expertly connected to the console, assuming full control over the machine. The Thor mech, severely damaged and reduced to its basic framework and some resilient transmission components, was a shadow of its former self. This was the result of Dr. Zhang Jiarui activating the mech's first-level self-destruct mechanism during their retreat from the Dirksen satellite, a measure designed to obliterate the mech's most sophisticated technologies and prevent enemy reverse engineering. Despite the extensive damage, the recovery of the wreckage by Kuat and Zhang Jiarui's involvement in the mech's design and development facilitated its restoration. Utilizing readily available mechanical parts from the Kuat drive yards, they managed to bring the Thor mech back to operational status. It's worth noting that the mech also contained a second-level self-destruct mechanism, a miniature nuclear bomb intended for use in dire battlefield scenarios without consideration for the pilot's escape. The absence of an operating system interface on the Thor mech meant that General Kalani was the only one capable of piloting it, given the complexity of manually controlling such a massive structure. Without uttering a word, Kalani heeded Zhang Jiarui's instructions and propelled the Thor mech forward with a powerful kick. The massive mech tore through the laboratory with unstoppable force, reducing everything Zhang Jiarui had left at the Kuat power dock to rubble. Even if Quarter had backups, demolishing the place brought a certain satisfaction. Amidst the destruction, Zhang Jiarui was startled by his son's telepathic voice. Despite his harsh words earlier, blaming his son for not fleeing, a wave of emotion washed over him at the sound of his voice. As the indestructible doors of the engineering laboratory swung open, Shen Yuanhao, Kleist, and Xiaoyan rushed in. General Kalani, piloting the mech, lowered it to allow them entry. Zhang Jiarui extended a rope ladder for them to climb aboard the Thor mech, which towered like a building at 20 meters tall. The mech's spacious interior could easily accommodate them. Upon seeing the group, Zhang Jiarui's concern for his son surged. "Why are you here? Where's my son?" he demanded. "Xiao Cheng is in the garbage disposal workshop. He's maintaining telepathy to keep us connected. We need to hurry and bring him back," Shen Yuanhao explained. Zhang Jiarui, overwhelmed with anger and concern, grabbed Shen Yuanhao, his voice thundering with accusation for leaving his son behind. Yet as Xiaoyan intervened, explaining it was Zhang Shucheng's own decision, Zhang Jiarui's anger was momentarily paused by his son's telepathic message. "Father, don't blame Uncle Shen. It was my choice. I may not know how to fight or hack, but I can listen. The world of the heart is my battlefield." Zhang Shucheng communicated with conviction. Moved by his son's bravery, Zhang Jiarui, struggling to contain his emotions, directed General Kalani to wreak havoc on Kuat, vowing to rescue his son and escape. Zhang Shucheng's reminder about the dinosaur sister and the formidable Jedi Knight they were up against added urgency to their mission. Meanwhile, at the Quarter Power Dock office building, chaos ensued as Rak ghouls rampaged, overpowering Kuat's security forces with ease. Amidst the carnage, a figure wielding a yellow lightsaber, known as Judgment, cut through the defenses, her blade effortlessly destroying a quadruple-mounted laser cannon. Judgment made her way to the top office, where Kuat Power Dock's senior officials were hiding. The battle robots guarding them stood no chance against her lightsaber, falling within minutes. Confronting the terrified officials, Judgment demanded the location of the captured separatist engineer. Her threat of turning them into rock ghouls sent shivers down their spines, with one official stammering a response, overwhelmed by fear. This scene painted a picture of desperation and courage as allies fought to save one another from the clutches of their enemies, showcasing the lengths to which they would go to protect their own. As the rat ghoul's sharp claws sliced through the man's skin, the transformation was swift and horrifying. Within seconds, under the watchful eyes of the gathered crowd, the man convulsed violently before mutating into a lark ghoul. This gruesome process caused several high-ranking officials to faint from shock. Amidst the chaos, one official shouted, "I know where he is. District 17. It's not under our control. It's on the opposite side of the star ring, several kilometers away from here." "And the exact location?" the judge pressed. "It's within an educational and training base, but that's all I know," the official replied hastily. "If time is of the essence, perhaps you should head there immediately." The judge, known as Judgment, sensed a pull in that direction, though force sensing was not her forte. Her expertise lay in lightsaber combat. Believing the official's information to be true, she lifted him and, without a word, threw him out of the upstairs window. His scream was cut short as a spaceship caught him mid-fall. Judgment then leaped onto the spaceship, pulled the man into the cockpit, and set course for outer space, aiming for the quickest route to their destination. Traveling within the star ring's gravitational pull and atmospheric resistance would take over an hour. However, by entering outer space, where these factors were negligible, Judgment could push the spacecraft to its limits and reach their destination in under 10 minutes. This method of travel was feasible only within the confines of a space station or the star ring. Launching from a planet's surface and then returning would take far too long. Meanwhile, Karina was locked in a dire battle against the formidable black hole. Despite her immense strength, she was no match for his dual-wielding lightsaber technique, Jakai, which allowed him to exploit every opening in her defense and inflict severe damage. His speed, agility, and strength rivaled hers, and with the Force's aid, he countered her light axe strikes relentlessly. Black Hole's intention to capture Karina as a prize was the only reason she had not yet been defeated. Enraged and driven to the brink of madness, her eyes blazed with fury as she aimed to obliterate her opponent. In her rage, a desperate surge of the Force broke through Black Hole's interference, reaching Zhang Shucheng. "Sister Dinosaur! No, she's going to be killed!" Zhang Shucheng panicked, feeling Karina's intense emotions. "Who will save her? She'll be killed by that Jedi Knight." In his desperation, Zhang Shucheng remembered the monster creator responsible for the atrocities on Kuat's industrial star ring. "That person, but I can't reach him. I must try." Closing his eyes, he focused his mind, extending his telepathy across the industrial star ring. "Whoever you are, please help me. Help Sister Dinosaur. She's about to be killed by a Jedi Knight. Please, help me." Casting such a wide telepathic net was a desperate measure, but Zhang Shucheng knew he had no other choice if he wanted to save Karina from her perilous situation. Zhang Shucheng had pushed himself beyond his limits. Blood trickled from his nose, and his complexion grew increasingly pale. Unbeknownst to him, a figure had stealthily entered the garbage disposal workshop and quietly opened the door. A sinister voice broke the silence. "I found you." A young man, appearing to be in his 20s, stepped into the light. His face bore black battle patterns, identical to those seen on the black hole tens of kilometers away. Clutched in his hand was a flat red lightsaber, its design marked by a winged tsuba, mirroring the ominous patterns on his face. "I didn't expect to stumble upon such an unexpected surprise," he said, his voice laced with malice as he advanced, his cruel smile widening with each step. He paused, sensing the distress signal emanating from Zhang Shucheng, his gaze swiftly shifting until it locked onto an inconspicuous cargo box. Could it be here? With swift motion, he brandished his lightsaber, slicing the cargo box open in a single fluid movement. Zhang Shucheng let out a scream, realizing his hiding spot had been compromised. He turned, his eyes wide with terror, and faced the approaching figure, his body trembling uncontrollably. "Heh. To think it was just a child. And here I was, expecting someone with formidable power," the man taunted. "Well, a child you are. After you die, be sure to telepathically inform your parents of your demise." "Help! Help!" Zhang Shucheng's voice was barely above a whisper, as he sat paralyzed with fear on the ground. The sinister laughter of the attacker echoed once more as he menacingly raised his lightsaber. However, before he could strike, another voice pierced through their mental connection, halting him in his tracks. "Who gave you the courage to harm my students?" This unexpected intervention brought a sudden shift in the atmosphere. The tension that had been building seemed to pause, awaiting the newcomer's next move. The question, delivered with authority and power, hinted at the arrival of someone formidable, someone not to be trifled with. The dynamics in the room had changed, and it was clear that the confrontation was far from over. Volume 2, Chapter 1472, Rescue Operations, 10. As the voice of the rescue operation echoed through telepathy, a fighter jet suddenly swooped down from the sky. Without any intention of slowing down, it crashed directly into the factory, causing a massive explosion that seemed to tear the sky apart. A gaping hole was blown open above the factory, with the nose of the fighter jet embedded inside, spewing flames and smoke. Amidst this chaos, a young man sensed an imminent danger. The Force warned him that if he proceeded to strike with his sword, he would meet his end. With no other choice, he quickly retreated and swung his retro lightsaber in a defensive maneuver. In the next moment, a terrifying blood-red swordlight clashed against his lightsaber with such force that he was sent flying, screaming as he went. Despite the flames and smoke billowing from the exploded fighter jet, Zhang Xucheng remained unharmed. From the fiery inferno, a figure in a white robe emerged. She was tall, with a solemn mask adorned with a gem that radiated a powerful dark aura, the True Sighter, a gift from Darth Malthael. She was the priestess, the mentor to the children of the Twilight Covenant. Upon seeing her, Zhang Xucheng's suppressed tears burst forth. "Teacher! Whoa! Teacher! Leave this to me, Xiaocheng. After you return, you'll be grounded for a month and must copy the lesson plan 1,000 times, the priestess said calmly. For now, with me here, no one can prevent me from ensuring your safe return. Her voice suggested she was in her late 30s or early 40s. Zhang Xucheng was momentarily unsure whether to continue crying or to laugh. The young man who had been knocked away wiped the blood from his mouth, his expression turning sinister. Hey, it seems the security of planet Kuat is riddled with loopholes to let so many intruders in. He cracked his neck, then mused aloud. But no, those who have come are indeed formidable. You must be the most powerful faction in the separatist movement, right? Aside from Earl Dooku and the deceased angel, have all the masters arrived? Heh. Very well then. His smile was chilling. Since you're here, I'll capture you all. Despite her mask hiding her expression, the priestess's laughter was filled with disdain. What? Dark Jedi Knights brazenly active on planet Kuat? The Republic has truly deteriorated. The young man, unfazed, responded coldly. Please, do not equate me with the Jedi Order. You cannot fathom the darkness and depth where I dwell. We observe everything, we spy on everything, and we guide the galaxy's future. He brandished his lightsaber, preparing for battle, and began to circle the priestess. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Black Hole, advisor to Chairman Palpatine. Master Depa Billaba, it is an honor to face your legendary and powerful 7th-style swordsmanship, Vapad. Advisor? The priestess chuckled dismissively. It seems Darth Sidious no longer cares for pretense. Pretense? You misunderstand. The path Sidious walks is the galaxy's destined future, Black Hole declared, adopting a fighting stance. Destruction is the ultimate fate of the galaxy. I'm curious to see how much weight a man who dreams of destroying the galaxy actually holds, the priestess retorted with a sneer. With a swift motion of her lightsaber, she vanished from sight. In the blink of an eye, she reappeared in front of Black Hole, her lightsaber poised for the next move in their epic confrontation. The technique of Favapad was unleashed in its full glory. After succumbing to the dark side, the swordsmanship of Vapad, which traditionally navigated the fine line between light and darkness, had transformed into something far more fierce and violent. Utilizing the sword technique to tap into the primal force, the aura emanating from the priestess turned as dark as the abyss itself. Meanwhile, in the vast expanse of outer space near the planet Kuat, a seemingly empty space was occupied by an entirely invisible spaceship, hovering silently far from any conventional theft. Ublight-speed travel roads, emitting no signals. Seated in the driver's seat was the village special, who was unexpectedly reunited with Tang Xiao. This spaceship, known as the Lancer, an Astro-class frigate, was a gift from Tang Xiao. It had undergone numerous upgrades, enhancing its energy systems, engines, and most crucially, its stealth capabilities with the latest technology. "Did you manage to rescue the boy?" Kunte inquired, his voice filled with concern. Standing beside him was a Protoss, clad in simple wrist armor, a breastplate, and a cloak, Sola'a, a Dark Templar. Her partner, Ola Khan, was positioned towards the cargo hold, accompanied by over 20 fully armed Solarians, members of the Solarian Special Forces. Fortunately, we received the telepathy from the boy in time, or he would have been lost. This rescue operation was fraught with risks. Bringing a child along was reckless. Tang Xiao's plan was flawed and reckless. According to the original plan, it would have been impossible for a standard Astro-class ship to infiltrate Kuat unnoticed, Kunte expressed, relieved yet critical of the operation's planning. Our initial objective was to eliminate Dr. Zhang Jiarui. However, the situation has evolved, and we must adapt accordingly, Sola'a communicated telepathically, her voice resonating in Kunte's mind. Kunte sighed, gesturing towards the star map displayed beside him. Ahead of us are formidable fleets, capable of encircling the Kuat star ring. Detection would mean certain destruction, yet for now they remain unaware of our presence. Their focus is elsewhere, thanks to the chaos caused on the star ring by those children, with 007 aiding in their efforts. "Can we ascertain Dr. Zhang Jiarui's current status?" Kunte inquired. "My telepathic reach is limited. We must wait for Zhang Shucheng to re-establish the spiritual network before we can proceed," Sola explained. Kunte shook his head, a sense of foreboding clouding his thoughts. "I fear Tang Xiao's plan might lead us into peril. Escaping the Kuat galaxy's defenses will be no small feat." "It was the priestess who entrusted this mission to you, not Tang Xiao," Sola reminded him, her tone reflecting the Protoss's characteristic directness. Kunte gazed out the window, a hint of melancholy in his voice. "We can only hope for a miracle now." Back on the industrial star ring, within the confines of the education and training base, a dramatic confrontation unfolded. A blood-red sword light flashed, severing the light axe in Karina's grasp. Following this, an immensely heavy mechanical device was suddenly hoisted, showcasing the incredible power at play. With a forceful strike, Karina was sent reeling backward, blood streaming from her mouth as she struggled for breath. Her towering figure began to diminish, shrinking to less than 3.5 meters tall, nearing her usual height of approximately 3.1 meters. This reduction in size was a clear indication of her severely weakened state. Meanwhile, the figure known as Black Hole advanced, wielding two lightsabers with an ease that suggested the battle had scarcely taxed him. His expression remained unchanged, betraying no sign of exertion. Suddenly, the ground trembled with the roar of an approaching behemoth. A massive, 20-meter-tall mech, resembling a mechanical titan, charged forward, its arms swinging wildly, demolishing buildings and infrastructure in its path. The base, sprawling in size, was thrown into chaos as the Thor mech, a veritable engine of destruction, laid waste to everything in its vicinity. Buildings collapsed, laboratories were upturned, and explosions erupted, igniting fires across numerous sectors due to short circuits and energy leaks. The base was plunged into disarray. Undeterred by the devastation, the Thor mech, under General Kalani's command, launched itself at Black Hole, its massive foot descending in a crushing stomp. Black Hole, with a swift sidestep, evaded the attack, his lightsabers humming as they sliced through the mech's leg, severing several pipes and causing cooling liquid to spurt out. Yet the mech's onslaught did not falter. Amidst the swirling debris and smoke, Black Hole's agility shone through. He dodged the mech's clumsy attacks with ease and leaped into its cockpit, only to find an engineering robot tethered by numerous data cables, barely keeping the mech operational. With a disdainful snort, Black Hole bisected the robot with a swift strike of his lightsaber. However, sensing imminent danger, he leaped away just as the cockpit erupted in a violent explosion, narrowly maintaining his balance. As he landed, Black Hole effortlessly dispersed a sudden flash of lightning with a flick of his wrist. "Your invisibility trick is far from convincing, little girl. It might fool the average person, but deceiving instruments requires a hacker's touch. And what of your separatist ideals? Despite your potential, you're still too inexperienced for the battlefield, he taunted. Emerging from the smoke, Xiaoyan, armed with stun guns and seething with rage, confronted Black Hole. Meanwhile, Karina, having taken the moment to recover, rose to her feet and advanced towards the fray. Nearby, Shen Yuanhao aimed a blaster sniper rifle at Black Hole's forehead from within a building. Kleist, having commandeered the control systems of several engineering robots, moved to encircle Black Hole, while Zhang Jiarui brandished a 6-barreled blaster machine gun, ready for combat. Black Hole sneered at the assembled resistance. Is this the best you can muster? I must admit, I'm impressed. Such a ragtag group of youths managing to infiltrate the Kuat Star Ring. It seems I'll have quite a few execution orders to sign upon my return. Return? I believe this will be your final battleground, a deep female voice interjected. Black Hole's demeanor shifted to one of solemnity as he turned to face the woman who had appeared beside Xiaoyan, positioning herself protectively in front of her. Her expression finally turned serious. Mole's amulet. You created the Lack Ghoul on the star ring. Are you Kane's Mole? Is this your new body? Regardless, this matter now concerns our dark prophet. You should not interfere. Carnismore has lost his mind, the person standing before Xiaoyan retorted, the amulet of Moore adorning his neck, his hair neatly tied into a braid. A purple half-mask concealed part of his face, revealing only the black-winged Celeste Moon eyes behind it, symbols of judgment. Kane's Maul? His soul has vanished? If that's the case, perhaps I need to reassess the power of Darth Malthael, Black Hole remarked darkly. You're aware of the name of the dead angel? Aside from the Jedi Knights, that knowledge should be unknown. What exactly are you dark prophets? Judgment demanded, his tone sharp. If Kane's Moore were here, he'd certainly have the right to know. Sadly, you've killed him. Heh! Black Hole laughed menacingly. No matter. It seems several leaders of your faction are present. Do you really think you can escape the Kuat Defense Fleet? Today is bound to be a day of reckoning. He slowly brandished his two lightsabers, adopting a dual-wielding stance known as Jiakai's opening move. Oh, and perhaps you should bid farewell to that telepathic boy you left behind first. What did you say? Zhang Jiarui's face paled, and he bellowed in outrage. The confrontation was tense, with each word and movement charged with the weight of their past and the stakes of their current predicament. The air was thick with the promise of a battle, one that would determine the fate of more than just the individuals involved. Vol 2, Chapter 1473, Dark Prophet. Damn it! What have you done to Xiao Cheng? Zhang Jiarui bellowed in rage upon hearing the ominous news. Gripping the 6-barreled blaster machine gun tightly, he aimed towards the ominous black hole and unleashed a barrage of fire. A torrent of blaster beams erupted, engulfing the area where the black hole loomed. Simultaneously, Shen Yuanhao's blaster sniper rifle and Xiaoyan's stun gun joined the onslaught, creating a formidable wall of firepower. Yet, their efforts seemed futile. The Dark Prophet, wielding 2 retro lightsabers, deflected the incoming attacks with movements so swift they blurred into a protective veil of light around him. Zhang Jiarui's roar echoed as the machine gun's cooler glowed red-hot from the relentless firing. Despite his efforts, the blaster energy beams were effortlessly repelled by the Dark Prophet's lightsabers, harmlessly scattering in all directions without reaching Zhang Jiarui and his allies. As the machine gun finally ceased due to overheating, the chaos subsided, revealing the Dark Prophet standing unharmed amidst the smoke and debris. However, his sinister gaze was fixed not on Zhang Jiarui and his companions, but on another presence. Moore's amulet, you would do well to stay out of this, he sneered, his attention on the judge. Despite her stillness, she had used her formidable power to deflect all the reflected blaster beams, preventing the Dark Prophet from turning Zhang Jiarui and his allies into casualties. Let's leave this place. Find a spaceship and escape, the judge suggested calmly. This fiend threatened my son. He must pay today. Zhang Jiarui's eyes blazed with fury as he stared down the Dark Prophet. Ha! Your anger is pointless. Your son is already dead. Did he not get a chance to telepathically report his demise? The Dark Prophet taunted, reveling in their despair. Veins bulged on Zhang Jiarui's neck as he nearly lunged forward in a blind rage, only to be halted by an invisible force barrier. The judge shook her head. He lacks the power to kill your son. Leave now, and we will retrieve your son together after I deal with this menace." With heavy hearts and eyes filled with tears and rage, Zhang Jiarui, Shen Yuanhao, Xiao Yan, and Karina reluctantly departed, leaving the judge to confront the Dark Prophet alone. Uninterested in pursuing them, the Dark Prophet's entire focus was on the judge. From the moment he laid eyes on her, he knew she was the most formidable adversary he had ever encountered. A yellow lightsaber materialized in the judge's hand as she advanced slowly, each step radiating an aura of impending doom. Suddenly, a terrifying force erupted, nearly toppling the Dark Prophet. This power was overwhelming, capable of disintegrating every cell from within. Struggling against this force, the Dark Prophet's vision blurred, and he glimpsed figures rising around him, figures in tattered uniforms of the Quarter Security Force. But these were no humans. They were monsters, a testament to the Sith artifact's dreadful power. Mor's amulet. Is this the might of the Sith artifact? The Dark Prophet gasped, struggling to speak. The judge wasted no time on words, her yellow lightsaber slicing through the air like a dragon in flight. The Dark Prophet, despite his efforts to resist, found himself overpowered by the amulet's force. His previous prowess, which had easily countered Karina's attacks, was now diminishing under the relentless assault. Retreating step by step, he suddenly sensed an imminent threat from behind. Seizing a fleeting opportunity, he swiftly counterattacked with his sword. With a swift motion, he decapitated a lac ghoul that had been stealthily approaching from behind. The ghoul's head, now monstrous in appearance, still bore the distinctive high hat of the Kuat security force. However, this brief distraction was all it took for the relentless assault of lightsabers to resume. Her mastery over the lightsaber had significantly improved since her previous encounter with Anakin Skywalker. Inisha Lai, her swordsmanship, rooted in techniques thousands of years old, was riddled with gaps when compared to the modern styles refined over generations by the Jedi Knights. Yet, this was merely a minor setback for her. Once she began to adapt and practice the contemporary swordsmanship, her skills evolved rapidly. At this moment, under the influence of Mor's amulet, the entity known as Black Hole was forced to divert much of its power to resist the amulet's corrosive effects, leaving it vulnerable to her onslaught. Despite being a formidable swordsman and force user, Black Hole found himself on the defensive, struggling to fend off her attacks. However, he soon sensed a disturbing shift. The force within the masked woman before him began to darken, growing increasingly potent, and her lightsaber ominously turned blood red. This transformation filled Black Hole with dread. You can actually switch the force between light and darkness? This is impossible. No one has achieved this since Darth Revan 4,000 years ago. The woman, known as Judgment, did not respond. She was not one for conversation, especially in the heat of battle. Her relentless focus on her target was a result of the harsh training she endured from childhood, raised by the Jedi Covenant to be nothing more than a weapon. Her ability to navigate between light and dark was not a matter of choice, but a peculiar equilibrium between her force and that of Karnes Mor. Normally aligned with the light, her power would inadvertently shift towards the dark as Mor's malevolent influence grew stronger. Judgment considered this a mere coincidence, unlike Darth Malthel, who saw it as a testament to her unique talent. Despite her skepticism, it was true that Celeste Morn was among the rare few in the Star Wars universe to have ever harmonized the light and dark sides of the Force. Decades later, she would play a pivotal role in defeating Darth Krayt, the most formidable Sith Lord of his time, achieving unity with the Force before dissolving into nothingness. As the dark side's influence intensified, Black Hole found himself increasingly overpowered. Under normal circumstances, he might have stood a chance against Judgment's dark side eruption, but the constant drain from Mor's amulet tipped the scales against him. Sensing his impending defeat, his expression shifted dramatically. Noticing the change, Judgment coldly taunted, "Did you feel it? I told you, you can't harm that boy." With a sinister grin, Black Hole retorted, "You guys are really something." "Hey!" In a desperate move, he abandoned all defense, thrusting his twin retro lightsabers forward like venomous snakes, aiming a direct and lethal strike. Judgment's lightsaber had just pierced through Haidong's chest and abdomen when, with a swift motion, it decapitated him. Despite his head tumbling to the ground, Haidong's laughter eerily persisted, his headless body standing unnervingly still. From the severed head, a sinister black mist began to seep out, emerging from the eyes, nose, ears, and the gaping wound at the neck. This mist gathered in the air, refusing to disperse, and shockingly started to coalesce into a human shape. Simultaneously, in the garbage disposal workshop, the priestess observed a similar phenomenon. A young man, whom she had just impaled, was also emitting a black mist that formed into a human figure. This dark, starry entity that materialized before them wore a triangular crown and exuded a terrifying aura, its eyes gleaming ominously. The figure seemed to be cloaked in the cosmos itself, with countless stars flowing across its form, creating the illusion of a humanoid universe. At the heart of this entity shone a star so bright, it appeared to be the core of the Milky Way itself. The presence of this dark, star-like figure imposed an overwhelming sense of dread upon both the judge and the priestess, who, despite their formidable powers, felt a deep-seated fear. Allow me to introduce myself anew. I am an advisor to Chairman Palpatine, a member of the Dark P, Rofit, Black Hole, the entity declared in a voice that was both deep and void, exuding an aura of chilling malevolence and fear. Dark Prophet. Judgment's expression hardened. Regardless of the entity's claims, its bizarre appearance and the manner of its arrival indicated that the individual they had just killed, whose swordsmanship was unparalleled in the Milky Way, was not Black Hole's true form. Judgment's primary concern was locating and eliminating Black Hole's actual body. Dark Prophet? Is there such an organization in the Milky Way? The priestess, too, was deeply concerned, realizing the immense threat posed by an organization capable of such power and strangeness. We observe and control this galaxy. We know everything. We control the future. Your actions are but a speck in the vastness of this galaxy. Everything is under our control. Everything will be destroyed. The entity's voice echoed ominously from both locations. Dismissing the entity's grandiose declarations, the priestess scoffed. Talking about destroying the Milky Way, it seems the Dark Prophet is nothing but a group of delusional fantasists. She aimed to provoke the entity for more information, mocking its power and intentions. Judgment, facing the dark star-like figure, responded coolly. Whatever your plans are, they are of no concern to me. You should prepare for your end, for I will find you. Laughing at their responses, Black Hole seemed uninterested in further dialogue. The figures began to fade into thin air, and as they vanished, the two corpses they left behind rapidly desiccated, turning into mummified remains in mere moments. The only trace left was Black Hole's echoing promise of destruction, foretelling the fall of the Milky Way and the entire universe into a cycle of entropy and ruin. As silence returned, Judgment looked thoughtfully in one direction before turning to walk towards Zhang Jiarui and the others, contemplating their next move in the face of this ominous new threat. The priestess silently absorbed the cryptic messages emanating from the black hole, choosing to keep its secrets to herself. She approached the visibly shaken Zhang Shucheng, gently lifting the boy to his feet, and spoke with a grave sincerity. Xiao Cheng, we find ourselves in grave peril. The Kuat defense fleet is besieged by a formidable adversary. Despite the governor dispatching his elite forces as reinforcements, their efforts pale in comparison to the might defending Kuat planet. Teacher, I was wrong. Zhang Shucheng lowered his head, acknowledging his error. I never suggested you were at fault, Xiao Cheng, the priestess reassured him. In times of danger, the decision to protect those we cherish is always the right one. Now, more than ever, we require your assistance. Only you possess the unique ability to unite us, to grasp the slim chance of escape that lies before us. Zhang Shucheng nodded with determination. I understand, teacher. Just tell me what needs to be done, and I will not falter. Meanwhile, a subtle yet intricate form of telepathy began to weave its way through the chaos, a testament to its precision despite its lack of strength. Elsewhere, as Zhang Jiarui and his companions commandeered a spaceship, the vessel's adjudicator abruptly turned, signaling towards a specific direction. Hidden on the outskirts of planet Kuat within the cloaked confines of an Astro-class frigate, Sola A announced, Success! I've connected with the child's mind. I've felt it as well. His potential is boundless. Ola Khan, another Dark Templar present in the cabin, affirmed as he rose to his feet. Then it's settled. We move now, Kunte declared with unwavering resolve. Easter Egg Chapter Attachment 1, Black Hole, the Emperor's Advisor. Vol 2, Chapter 1474, Rescue Operations. 11. In the command center of the Quarter Industrial Star Ring's security force, tension filled the air. Commander Donald surveyed the holographic map, where red dots indicating threats flashed ominously. Report the current battle situation immediately. Are the monsters in District 14 contained? He demanded, his expression grim. Sir, we've sealed the entrances and exits from Area 14 to prevent the monsters from spreading, an officer reported. However, the number of monsters in District 14 is overwhelming. Even with the area sealed, eliminating them will be a massive undertaking. Donald nodded, his jaw set. I've requested a cleanup team from headquarters, comprised entirely of IG-86 Sentinel robots. Our priority is to prevent these monsters from invading other areas. Rest assured, sir, Districts 14, 9th, and 8th, where the monster populations are highest, have been secured. We've also sealed off passages in other areas to contain the threat. The spread is now under control, the officer assured him. How many monsters are we dealing with? Donald inquired, bracing himself for the answer. If we assume that everyone in the sealed areas has been turned, we could be facing over 5 million monsters, the officer's voice trailed off, the magnitude of the crisis dawning on him. That means over 5 million casualties. Donald slammed his fist on the table, anger and sorrow mingling in his voice. These separatist scum creating such a devastating virus, they've targeted innocent civilians, workers' families. The officer shared Donald's outrage. They're likely trying to rescue Zhang Jiarui, whom we captured. We've lost contact with our secret engineering lab. I fear they may have succeeded. Block all access to District 7, Donald ordered, his fury unabated. We can't let them succeed. The lives lost on our star ring cannot be in vain. But, sir, District 7 is currently housing evacuees from Districts 8 and 9. The situation there is complex, the officer cautioned. The situation will only worsen if they manage to free Zhang Jiarui. Seal District 7, cut off all communications, and notify the defense fleet to surround it. No one gets in or out. Prioritize sending the IG-86 Sentinel robots for reinforcement, Donald commanded, his decision final. Meanwhile, in District 7, the atmosphere was charged with urgency. The sky, once open for spacecraft and shielded by an energy curtain, was now being obscured by massive hatches. These hatches, hundreds of kilometers long and weighing millions of tons, threatened to seal the area completely. Nearby, a facility posing as an education and training center concealed the entrance to Kuat Power Shipyard's secret engineering lab. Here, a rescue team was making a daring attempt to extract Zhang Jiarui. Among them was Judgment, whose formidable power made her the linchpin of their operation. Under her command, hundreds of Lark ghouls charged forward, overwhelming the Kuat security forces with their ferocity. The security personnel, already demoralized by the relentless assault of the Rak ghouls, were now in disarray. Despite Judgment's restraint from creating more ghouls, the existing horde was enough to send the defenders scattering in panic. In addition, Agent 07 leveraged his access, obtained through the security force commander's wife, to disrupt communications and further complicate the Kuat force's response. The rescue operation was in full swing, with every second bringing them closer to their goal amidst the chaos. The command structure of the security forces was in disarray, preventing them from effectively coordinating their efforts to encircle and suppress the intruders. Despite the tens of thousands of security personnel in the 7th area, the conflicting orders rendered them incapable of surrounding the education and training center. The rescue team, having initially planned to hijack a spaceship, found themselves advancing on foot towards the nearest factory, which housed a takeoff and landing platform, due to all SPI, ACE ships in the vicinity being relocated. Here, they hoped to rendezvous with their rescue spacecraft. After being rescued by the priestess, Zhang Shucheng had managed to re-establish the telepathy network. This network allowed for communication among the various factions of the rescue team, a critical advantage now that the Kuat security forces' interference had rendered normal communication methods ineffective. Blast it! They're gonna seal off this area, Shen Yuanhao exclaimed, his gaze fixed on the massive hatch that was slowly closing. It's too late. Where are Kunte and the others? Zhang Shucheng's voice resonated in his mind. Uncle Kunte is already in position, but they must remain hidden for now. Uncle Bond has informed me that the security force is currently reorganizing their command structure. The authority he's been exploiting is likely to be compromised soon. We need to move faster, Shen Yuanhao urged. Karina, fueled by determination, declared, I'll take care of those adversaries. With that, she charged forward, her body expanding to an imposing height of approximately 3.5 meters, transforming her into a rampaging force of nature. The Kuat security forces, positioned ahead, unleashed a barrage of blaster fire and missiles. The relentless assault forced Karina to momentarily slow her advance. Having already expended a significant amount of energy in a previous encounter with a black hole, Karina found the enhanced firepower of the security forces, bolstered by their commanding officer's orders, to be particularly punishing. Despite the onslaught, Karina, embodying the ferocity of a rat ghoul, continued her charge towards the defense line. It was at this moment that several transport spaceships appeared overhead, deploying a multitude of combat robots via airdrop. These were IG-86 Sentinel robots, slender in design, yet bristling with lethal armaments, making each one a formidable adversary. While the Federation of Independent Galaxies was known for its extensive use of combat robots, the Kuat Drive Yards had also amassed its own formidable robot army. Despite the Galactic Republic's legal ban on the IG-86 model, the Interstellar Banking Association continued its production, with the Rush Clovis faction on the planet Au acquiring them, and subsequently, Kuat purchasing a significant number. The arrival of the IG-86 robots introduced a genuine threat to Karina's advance, marking a pivotal moment in the confrontation. Attached Easter egg, Image 1 of the IG-86 Sentinel robot, the precursor to the notorious IG-88 assassination droid. Vol 2, Chapter 1475, Rescue Operations, 12. The hum of the lightsaber filled the air as Judgment skillfully wielded it. Neither the IG-86 Sentinel droids nor the soldiers of Kuat's security force stood a chance against her. With her exceptional swordsmanship and innate force abilities, she reached the prowess of a top Jedi Master without relying on Mor's amulet. She sliced through the security force's defense line like a hot knife through butter, advancing with the rescue team. However, as Shen Yuanhao had warned, their efforts might still be insufficient. The Star Ring area was under blockade, trapping them. This was part of the Fourth Civilization's initial plan, to sacrifice some of their operatives and task forces to eliminate Zhang Jiarui. The despair of attempting a rescue from the Kuat Industrial Star Ring stemmed from the fact that once the doors were sealed, escape would become impossible. Under normal circumstances, the Star Ring area wouldn't be sealed off, since closing the massive hatch would isolate it almost entirely, cutting off all supplies, including energy and food, which could be perilous. But now, with the area blockaded, and unlike other regions plagued by rat ghouls, it seemed the authorities were willing to doom everyone within to prevent Zhang Jiarui and his companions from escaping. Time was running out before the hatch of the 7th area would be completely sealed. They still needed to retrieve the priestess and Zhang Shucheng from the garbage disposal workshop. Judgment felt a deep conflict within her. She could easily break through the Kuat security lines using the power of Mor's amulet, but she hesitated. She had been trying to escape the nightmare of Karn's Mor for over 4,000 years. Although Tang Xiao had later absorbed Kane's Mor's ghost, ending his existence, the battle against the Dream Sisters revealed that it was far from over. Judgment knew too well the ghost of Kane's Mor. For 4,000 years, he had tried and failed to devour her soul. Yet in the process, everything about him had imprinted on her mind. If his essence were extracted from her, Kane's Mor, one of the oldest Sith Lords, could, in a sense, be resurrected. This fear made Judgment reluctant to use the amulet's power, worrying that it might bring the demon closer to resurrection within her. Despite her allegiance to the Fourth Civilization and Darth Malthal, Judgment preferred to rely on her own strength rather than Karneth Mor's. This was her greatest dilemma. But faced with the urgency of their mission and the terrified expressions of Kleist and Xiaoyan, she made a decisive choice. Raising her hand, the ominous red gemstones of the Moor amulet around her neck began to glow. Suddenly, thousands of Kuat security forces soldiers collapsed, screaming in agony. They writhed on the ground, convulsing violently, and in moments were transformed into rock ghouls. These newly formed ghouls, seizing their former weapons, charged at the IG-86 Sentinel droids, igniting a fierce battle. Seizing this opportunity, the rescue team finally reached their rendezvous point. But at the same time, they faced new challenges. The area was heavily fortified with more IG-86 Sentinel robots and Kuat security forces than before. It was evident that they had resolved the issue of disorganized command and had unified their command system. Suddenly, a black Astro-class frigate appeared in the sky, descending rapidly before its hatch swung open. Over 20 soldiers from the Solari Special Forces leaped out, swiftly dispersing into the surrounding terrain. They vanished, leaving behind only the sporadic sound of gunfire. The rescue team hurried aboard the spacecraft. At that moment, the Kuat security force soldiers on the ground opened fire on the frigate. Kunte, seated at the pilot's controls, quickly maneuvered the spacecraft to ascend and accelerate. He activated the cloaking device and set course towards the location of the priestesses. Weren't there some Solari forces just now? They haven't boarded yet. Xiaoyan shouted to Ku. No, they're not coming, Kunte replied gravely. They're sacrificing their time for us. Xiaoyan's face blanched at the realization. Despite the frigate's speed, it was soon detected by several fighter jets. Damn it, we've been locked on. It's the anti-stealth radars from the defensive fleet's battleships above. Kunte skillfully piloted the spacecraft, but the fighter jets relentlessly pursued them. The cloaking device can't fully mask the friction with the atmosphere, the judge, sitting in the co-pilot's seat, explained. I'll assist with the piloting. Using the Force, I can predict and adjust our flight path. Let's do it, Kunte said through clenched teeth. As they flew over a garbage disposal workshop, a hovercar suddenly surged in power and ascended towards them. In a perfectly timed maneuver, the judge flicked the spaceship's tail and simultaneously opened the hatch. At that precise moment, the priestess, carrying Zhang Shucheng, leaped into the spacecraft's hatch. The hovercar, now out of control, plummeted to the ground. Had the judge's action been delayed by even a tenth of a second, the priestess and Zhang Shucheng would not have made it aboard. Such is the power of the Force. Upon seeing Zhang Shucheng, Zhang Jiarui rushed over and embraced his son tightly. However, their reunion was overshadowed by the imminent danger. The hatch to the 7th area had been sealed shut, effectively isolating the entire Star Ring area. The number of fighter jets targeting the Astro-class frigate had grown to more than 10. They circled the spacecraft like predators, unleashing a barrage of fire. Their relentless assault made it clear they would not rest until the frigate was downed. At this moment, the rescue team found themselves trapped, with no apparent way out. Vol 2, Chapter 476, Rescue Operations. In the midst of the rescue operation at the Quarter Industrial Star Ring's Security Force Command Center, an officer clad in a white uniform, markedly different in style from the other soldiers, approached Commander Donald. With a frosty demeanor, he reported, "Our intelligence department has verified that the interference orders previously encountered were authorized under your code." "That's impossible. I've always maintained control over my authority, and I'm fully aware of the commands I've issued. Everyone here in the command center can vouch that I never issued those contradictory orders." Donald responded, a mix of shock and anger evident in his voice. "This indicates a security breach," the intelligence official replied, his tone still icy and detached. As an agent of the Ministry of Intelligence, operating under the direct jurisdiction of the Galactic Republic's Ministry of Intelligence, his reports were made directly to the highest echelons of Kuat, rendering the commander's protests insignificant. Donald was taken aback. "A security breach? Are you suggesting my authority has been compromised? That's preposterous." He quickly recovered from the initial shock and ordered an officer nearby, "Investigate this immediately. Activate the backup command system and bypass the current one. Transfer all command authority." As he issued the orders, Donald couldn't help but feel a chill run down his spine upon seeing the intelligence officer's expression. A breach would directly implicate him. Shortly after, another officer hurried over, announcing from a distance, "Sir, we've identified the source of the breach." He paused upon noticing the intelligence officer, then approached Donald and whispered the unsettling news. "The leak originated from yourself." Donald was both shocked and panicked by the revelation. However, before he could process this information, he sensed something was amiss with the officer before him. Despite the confusion, Donald's instincts as a seasoned commander kicked in, sensing danger. But before he could act, the situation escalated dramatically. The officer suddenly lunged forward, seizing Donald by the neck with astonishing speed and pressing down on his carotid artery, rendering Donald powerless. In a swift motion, the officer also snatched Donald's blaster pistol and executed the intelligence officer with a precise shot to the head. Donald was caught off guard, unable to react. "You are the traitor," the officer declared. "It's rather crude to label me a traitor," the officer, revealed to be a senior agent from the Fourth Civilization's intelligence department with the code name 007, retorted. "I've never been one of your operatives. At best, consider me a rogue agent." "You won't get away with this. Release me and surrender. It's your only chance at survival." Donald attempted to negotiate. "I'm not concerned about my escape, but you should be worried about your own survival. Immediately open the hatch to Section 7 and lift the blockade." 007 demanded, tightening his grip. "Even if I do, the defense fleet is stationed outside. Do you really think you can escape?" Donald challenged. "Open the hatch," 07 insisted, applying more pressure, leaving Donald gasping for air. Faced with no other choice, Donald looked at the lifeless body of the intelligence officer and reluctantly ordered, "Quick! Open the hatch to Section 7. "Understood." Several soldiers sprang into action. "Also, inform the defense fleet that you've captured Tang Xiao." 007 added, tightening his grip once more. I will. With 007 releasing his hold, Donald had no option but to comply. As the hatch to Section 7 slowly reopened, a thunderous roar echoed through the area. Above Section 7, the Astro-class frigate Lancer of Kunte was engaged in a fierce battle with the pursuing Republic fighter jets. The class vessel possessed only minimal firepower, but thanks to Kunte's ingenuity, a turbo-laser cannon had been installed, granting them a fighting chance. At this critical juncture, the priestess took over the co-pilot's seat. Her proficiency in operating the spaceship, combined with her ability to use the Force for precognition, allowed them to shoot down more than a dozen enemy fighter jets. However, their situation remained dire. If they continued on their current path, their only fate would be a catastrophic crash, spelling doom for everyone on board. In the midst of the chaos, Zhang Shucheng received a telepathic message from 07. "Uncle 07 has captured the commander of the Kuat security force. They're going to open the hatch soon," he relayed. "Understood. Climb to altitude and prepare to leave as soon as the hatch opens," Kunte responded with determination. "But what about Uncle 07? Shouldn't we go back for him?" Zhang Shucheng asked, his innocence shining through. Zhang Jiarui, embracing his son, replied with a heavy heart, "This is war, Xiaocheng. This is war." Shen Yuanhao interjected, "But the Kuat fleet is waiting for us outside, and their radar has already locked onto us. What do?" "We do our best. I'll take the helm. With the Force's foresight, perhaps I can evade the Kuat defense fleet's attacks," the priestess said, though her voice betrayed her lack of confidence. Escaping a main fleet's notice in a frigate seemed an impossible feat, one not even Master Yoda could achieve. Yet, they had no time to ponder further options. Suddenly, a massive, dull roar echoed as the hatch above Area 7 began to crack open wider. The hatch was reopening. Without hesitation, the priestess took control of the spaceship. Piloting the Lancer, she executed a series of intricate maneuvers. Almost simultaneously, a barrage of energy blasts and laser beams rained down from the sky, targeting the opening hatch. It was the Kuat defense fleet, having pinpointed the Lancer's location from a ground-based detection station, opening fire the moment the hatch was exposed. However, their assault missed its mark. Most of the firepower was absorbed by the hatch cover, with some blasts reaching the interior of Area 7. Despite the battleships limiting their firepower, the bombardment inflicted severe damage on the industrial Starlink. As the Lancer emerged from the star ring, it was immediately besieged by an overwhelming array of anti-aircraft fire. The Kuat Defense Fleet's turrets, along with numerous turrets stationed around the industrial star ring and hundreds of fighter jets, encircled them. Their situation seemed to go from bad to worse. Escaping the confines of the star ring only led them into another seemingly inescapable predicament. However, in that moment of despair, Kleist suddenly exclaimed, "I have a solution! Look over there!" Everyone's gaze followed her pointing finger, only to see a massive warship docked in a shipyard several kilometers away. This chapter does not exist, sadly. Let's proceed to the next chapter. Vol 2, Chapter 1478, Eclipse-class prototype ship. In the year 1478, aboard the Eclipse-class prototype ship, Lila Blissex expressed her frustration with a frown. How could they cause such chaos in the industrial star ring? Are the security forces incompetent? An assistant by her side chimed in. According to the information we've gathered, the intruders might include several highly powerful dark Jedi. Lila Blissex scoffed at the notion. No matter how formidable these separatists might be, they stand no chance against the Kuat Defense Fleet's impenetrable defense line. Their only fate is obliteration. Ensure our teams are ready for cleanup operations. We must obtain a sample of the virus they've unleashed in the star ring. But what about the intruders? They seem to have taken Zhang Jiarui with them, and now they've breached our Eclipse-class prototype ship. We must devise a strategy to recapture Zhang Jiarui. He holds the key to unlocking the secrets of the ultra-long-range energy weapon, the particle light spear, as he has informed us, the assistant reported. Lila Blissex waved off the concern. Capturing Zhang Jiarui intact is nearly impossible under these circumstances. The separatists wouldn't have gone to such lengths without a contingency plan. If we can't secure him, then he must be eliminated on the spot. The assistant hesitated. Should we proceed with elimination? The fleet commander has inquired about the status of our Eclipse-class prototype ship, hoping for our cooperation to halt the battleship if possible. Do we have any contingency plans? Lila inquired, her knowledge on the subject limited since the Eclipse-class design far exceeded her expertise. During the design and testing phase, she was merely the figurehead leader of the Kuat power dock, with Ona Naquat of Kuat taking the credit, while her team handled the actual design work. Yes, the Eclipse-class prototype is equipped with a disengagement system. If activated, it can forcibly separate the engines from the 4 Knight-class star destroyers installed on the ship. This safety measure was installed during the thrust test to preserve the prototype in case of an engine fire or explosion, the assistant explained. Lila Blissex pondered for a moment, her expression uncertain. Forget about that system. It was never installed. Erase all records of it. Then, we wait. But that means Zhang Jiarui and the others might escape with the Eclipse-class prototype ship, the assistant protested anxiously. Lila smiled coldly. It lacks a hyperspace engine. Escape is impossible. Once they pilot the Eclipse-class prototype far enough, the Kuat Defense Fleet commander will know how to handle it. As the assistant began to voice another concern, he was silenced by Lila's chilling smile and quickly conceded, "I'll see to it immediately. All records will be purged from the system, and I'll inform the fleet commander that we have no means to prevent the Eclipse from fleeing." "Proceed," Lila Blissex commanded, before turning to leave without another glance. Meanwhile, under the remote control of Kleist, the Eclipse-class prototype ship began its tumultuous turn, breaking free from the mechanical arms and connecting cabin that anchored it to the dock. The force of its movement shattered a significant portion of the dock into debris. Chaos ensued as the dock was littered with wreckage, and the Eclipse continued its destructive path. It seemed as though a colossal mountain range was moving through, obliterating everything in its wake. The crew aboard the battleship, gripped by panic, rushed to the control center in a desperate attempt to shut down the engines. However, their efforts were met with. The battleship was in constant turmoil, its interior rocked by what felt like unending earthquakes, making it anything but stable. Engineering ships and tugboats swarmed towards it, activating their tractor beams in a futile attempt to tow the Eclipse-class prototype ship. However, the notion that these smaller vessels could influence the trajectory of such a colossal warship, measuring an impressive 10 meters in length, with its engines at full throttle, was ludicrous. Consequently, the Eclipse-class ship, undeterred, dragged the cluster of smaller spaceships with it as it made its way toward the outer reaches of Kuat Planet's gravity well. Amidst this chaos, the village special and the priestess piloted the Lancer through the vast interior of the Eclipse-class prototype ship, engaging in a fierce battle with the invading AT assault transport boats. The interior space, a mix of hangar platforms and areas earmarked for future installations, was cluttered with unfinished structures, making it a complex battlefield devoid of enclosed compartments. In such an environment, fighter jets were at a disadvantage, leaving assault transport ships, with their superior low-altitude and low-speed capabilities, as the preferred choice for combat. However, the Lancer was an exception. Guided by the priestess's foresight, the Lancer navigated the intricate terrain with increasing speed, effortlessly evading obstacles that made even Kunte avert his gaze from the porthole. The Lancer outmaneuvered the pursuing AT assault transport boats, which, due to delayed reactions, frequently collided with the prototype ship. The turbolaser cannon, expertly operated by Judgment, proved deadly accurate, hitting targets amidst the myriad obstacles with unerring precision. Yet, the crisis was far from over. "Someone is sabotaging the battleship's power system," Kleist exclaimed in alarm. "Unable to breach my firewall, they've resorted to physically destroying the engine." "I'll eliminate them all," Karina declared, her fangs bared menacingly. "If you go, you might not return," Judgment cautioned, even as she fired the turbolaser cannon, obliterating an assault transport ship attempting to evade a suspended beam, striking its cockpit directly. With no further enemies in pursuit, Judgment stepped away from the gun mount, turned to Karina with a laugh, and said, "It doesn't matter. Just go. I can handle things here and find my way back." "No, I'll take care of it," Judgment replied calmly. She approached the spaceship's door, opening it and extending her hand outward, closing her eyes as she did so. In that moment, the power of Moore's amulet was unleashed. The Kuat engineers, still aboard the Eclipse-class prototype ship and attempting to avert disaster, were instantly transformed into lac ghouls, succumbing to the amulet's dark influence. Judgment, visibly fatigued by the ordeal, returned to the cabin. She did not resume her position at the turret, but instead sat cross-legged in a corner, beginning to meditate. It wasn't physical exhaustion or the strain of using the force that weighed on her. It was the burden of wielding the amulet of Moore's power. The darkness and malevolence of the amulet troubled her deeply, as she feared becoming ensnared by its corrupting influence, unable to find her way back. Vol 2, Chapter 479. Choose one of two, sir. The Eclipse-class prototype ship is accelerating. If we don't act now, we'll lose it. An officer hurriedly reported to the commander of the Kuat Defense Fleet. The commander's expression darkened. Currently, at least half of the battleships in the Kuat Defense Fleet were engaged in a futile attempt to contain the Eclipse-class prototype ship. Despite their efforts, they could only exchange fire while helplessly watching the signals of the transport ships vanish one by one. After all, they were dealing with an Eclipse-class ship, a formidable opponent. With the three super battleships, Fang, Plague, and Xuanwu, wreaking havoc on the front lines, and Plague even making a daring escape to the galaxy's core area, the Galactic Republic was desperate for a super battleship of its own. The Commander 2-class Dreadnought was a temporary solution, essentially an upscaled version of existing technology without any real breakthroughs. Its inadequacy was proven in the Battle of the Eliadu Galaxy, where it failed to counter the separatist Titan battleship Xuanwu. The Kuat Drive Yards proposed the Eclipse-class Superstar Destroyer project. Lila Blissex, the project's lead, presented an ambitious and captivating vision to the Speaker of the Republic, Sheev Palpatine, who was thoroughly impressed. Lila's ability to appeal to her superiors was unmatched, even surpassing her father's skills in this regard. Thus, the Eclipse-class Superstar Destroyer became the Galactic Republic's beacon of hope, with both the military and the Parliament eagerly anticipating its completion to shatter the myth of the Separatists' invincible super warships. The loss of even a single component of the Eclipse-class prototype was unthinkable. Yet, the current situation was dire. Watching the fugitives from the Kuat star system hijack the prototype and flee was unacceptable. Fools! The fleet commander, seething with frustration, slammed his military cap onto the ground and demanded, "Has the shipbuilding engineering department responded? Is there any way to stop this battleship?" The engineering department just replied, but they're unable to assist. Since it's a prototype, it wasn't equipped with any security measures, the liaison officer reluctantly informed him. They're evading responsibility. Those engineers prioritize their safety above all else, and now they claim there are no security measures? Who do they think they're fooling? The commander bellowed. They mentioned that security for the Kuat galaxy falls under our jurisdiction. They couldn't have anticipated this security breach, so there's nothing they can do. The liaison officer explained, sensing the commander's growing ire. The commander's face was a mask of frustration as he stared at the holographic star map, displaying the half-completed super warship, without uttering a word. "Sir, they're still accelerating. If we let them continue, they'll escape the planet's gravitational pull in less than 10 minutes. At that point, their small, stealthy spacecraft could enter hyperspace," the adjutant reported. "How is the hyperspace blocker set up?" the commander inquired. "It's too late. We never anticipated they'd manage to escape into space, let alone prepare for a hyperspace jump. Deploying the blocker now is impossible," the adjutant replied, shaking his head. "What about shooting down their spaceship before it exits the prototype and prepares for hyperspace travel?" the commander pressed. "That's currently our second-best option. However, given the spacecraft's flight pattern earlier, it's almost certainly piloted by someone highly skilled. Intercepting it successfully will be challenging," the adjutant explained. The commander was faced with a difficult decision. Time was running out, and the stakes couldn't be higher. The future of the Galactic Republic's naval supremacy hinged on the actions they chose to take in the next few moments. The adjutant hesitated. "A dark Jedi Knight is our target. It's challenging to ensure a direct hit. What's the second feasible solution? And what about the first one?" The commander's expression darkened. "Sir," the adjutant replied, "the first option is to destroy this Eclipse-class prototype ship." The fleet commander closed his eyes, pondering the most reliable solution thus far. Should they allow the fugitives to use the Eclipse-class prototype ship as a cover to escape, or should they destroy the prototype ship? Either choice carried grave consequences. He realized that either decision could potentially end the high-ranking position he had worked his entire life to achieve. With a heavy heart, the commander returned to his seat on the bridge, sitting down warily. After a moment of contemplation, he stood up abruptly, his eyes bloodshot and fierce, and commanded sharply, "Deploy all warships, fire at full strength, destroy the Eclipse-class prototype ship." "Sir, but," the adjutant began. "Execute the order." The commander roared, his voice filled with a mix of anger and desperation. Following his command, the warships of the Kuat Defense Fleet unleashed a barrage of firepower. Turbolaser cannons, missiles, torpedoes, every weapon designed for ship combat was fired without restraint. The 17,500-meter-long giant ship was soon engulfed in explosions and flames. The prototype ship, mostly a skeletal frame with minimal outer armor, designed only to maintain structural integrity and protect the power system for testing, began to disintegrate under the onslaught. Unbeknownst to the Kuat Defense Fleet, the moment they commenced their attack, the Lancer had activated its hyperspace engine. In the face of imminent destruction, and guided by the foresight of two powerful Force users, a priestess and a trialist, they made a daring decision. It was a risky move, especially since they hadn't fully escaped the gravitational pull of the Kuat planet and were still aboard the Eclipse-class battleship. This action was tantamount to courting death, yet it offered a sliver of hope. The priestess, Depa Balaba, had once participated in an overseas exploration plan proposed by Master Cerbos before the war. Although she didn't partake in the final expedition, her research under Master Cerbos and her experiments with using the Force to stabilize hyperspace travel conditions, conducted while she was still an apprentice of Master Windu, provided them with this last chance. Kleist, taking control of the Eclipse-class prototype ship, had given them an opportunity to gamble with their lives. And now, as a white light flashed, the Lancer, along with some internal parts of the Eclipse-class prototype ship, vanished into hyperspace. Less than a second after their departure, the remaining structure of the Eclipse-class prototype ship was obliterated by the relentless artillery fire. Vol 2, Chapter 480, Time to Die. At this moment, within the command center of the Kuat Security Force on the Kuat Industrial Star Ring, Commander Donald stared at the holographic image displaying the Eclipse-class prototype ship being torn apart by relentless artillery fire. His face turned ashen. It was clear to him, even without much thought, that his career, perhaps even his life, was over. The destruction of the Eclipse-class prototype ship, following the escape of a high-profile fugitive, was a disaster of monumental proportions. Donald knew all too well that the responsibility for this catastrophe could trace back directly to Speaker Schiff Palpatine. How could he, merely the commander of a modest security force, withstand such a fallout? As he tallied the failures under his watch, the weight of his predicament became crushingly clear. A crucial prisoner with knowledge of particle light spear technology had escaped. A deadly virus had wreaked havoc on the star ring, claiming over 5 million lives. Significant damage had been inflicted upon the internal facilities of Areas 8, 9, and 14, with the dock in Area 7 also severely compromised. The Eclipse-class prototype was destroyed, and security command authorization had been compromised. Any one of these incidents could prompt the Supreme Court of the Galactic Republic to resurrect the long-abandoned death penalty, and Donald was implicated in every single one of these disasters. Damn! Damn! The more Donald pondered his situation, the angrier he became. He spun around and yelled at 07, who was still holding him captive. "You will die here. You're definitely going to die here. No matter what you do. You will die. You will die." "I never expected to leave here alive, dear Donald," 007 replied with a smile, whispering in his ear. "But I must clarify something for you. It was your wife who leaked your authority. Perhaps, in your efforts to curry favor with your superiors or to tend to your mistress, you should have paid more attention to managing your marriage, don't you think?" "It's none of your business," Donald growled in response. "Of course, you'll never be able to reveal this secret. You will bear all the responsibilities while she continues to live a comfortable life," James Bond said, before suddenly exerting force and snapping Donald's neck. "It's time to die." He let Donald's body fall to the ground and reached into his breast pocket as if to draw a gun. In the next instant, he was surrounded by a barrage of energy beams from the guards. The force of the explosion sent his body flying. When he landed, those lake blue eyes had lost their sparkle. His hand weakly spread out, and a cigarette from Dawn Planet rolled onto the ground. Almost simultaneously, the commander of the Kuat Defense Fleet, pale-faced, watched the Eclipse-class super battleship prototype disintegrate in an explosion. A report from the sensor department had just come in, indicating a faint hyperspace fluctuation inside the ship before its destruction. This meant that despite his drastic order to destroy the valuable prototype, he had still failed to prevent the fugitives from escaping. With trembling hands, the commander picked up his military cap from the ground, placed it back on his head, and brushed off the dust. After one last look at the tragic scene on the screen, he drew his pistol, placed it against his temple, and pulled the trigger. "Chief Engineer, the Eclipse-class prototype ship has been destroyed by the Defense Fleet," a senior engineer reported respectfully to Lila Blissex, the chief engineer of Kuat Power Dock. Without turning, Lila continued to focus on a large holographic model of a battleship in front of her. Wearing sensing gloves, she skillfully adjusted the design details of the battleship. Upon hearing the engineer's report, Lila responded indifferently. "Prepare." The meeting materials were prepared, and the investigation team of the Galactic Republic was informed that prior to the incident, preparations were underway for the test of the Solar Ecli PSE-class super main gun. Unfortunately, the prototype ship was destroyed, rendering the results of the experiment null and void. The Galactic Republic will never accept this outcome. The senior engineer, breaking out in a cold sweat, understood the significance of the Eclipse class to the Galactic Republic better than anyone. He knew that if this plan failed and Palpatine became furious, the consequences would be dire. Lila remained calm amidst the tension. This outcome was inevitable. However, it's crucial to understand that the root cause of this incident was primarily due to Kuat Drive Yard's failure in securing its own planet. Not only did Zhang Jiarui infiltrate, but the subsequent rescue efforts further plunged the planet into chaos. Consequently, it wasn't long before Little Court reached out to me. True to her words, Little Court soon sent a communication, inviting Lila Blissex and her team's core technicians to a meeting in the capital city of Planet Court. Upon entering the meeting room, they were greeted by the sight of Little Court at the head of the table. Despite his flamboyant appearance, adorned with a headscarf and exaggerated earrings, his demeanor was anything but. As the next in line to lead Kuat Drive Yards, his decisive and fierce leadership contrasted sharply with his appearance. Little Court had just finished reprimanding the officials responsible for Planet Court's security, who stood silently with pale faces, clearly overwhelmed by the severity of their punishment. As Lila entered, Little Court gestured dismissively, and a few guards, donning the high hats unique to Kuat soldiers, escorted the officials out. "Boss Blissex, today has been a significant setback for us," Little Court admitted as he gestured for Lila to take a seat beside him. "Looking at the bigger picture, it's not entirely negative," Lila responded, taking her seat. "The Eclipse class's design and construction have been problematic. This incident might cool the Galactic Republic's enthusiasm for it. If the Eclipse class doesn't achieve the capability to obliterate separatism entirely, they'll deem it a failure." Little Court nodded in agreement. "My anger stems from the fact that such an attack occurred on the industrial star ring, indicating it could happen to us as well. The thought of the horrific virus that transformed people into monsters breaking out right under our noses terrifies me. Even the speaker's advisors suffered greatly here. I've discussed this with him, and he also speaks highly of the strength of several separatist dark Jedi Knights." Lila interjected, "Let's focus on the Eclipse-level plan. We need to persuade the chairman to either terminate it or at least postpone it, allowing the executor-level plan to take precedence." Vol 2, Chapter 1481, The Executor-Class Superstar Destroyer Project. Executor level. Little Quarter furrowed his brow. Indeed, when compared to the Eclipse class, the technical requirements for the Executor class are somewhat lower, making it more feasible to implement. However, how do we justify this to the speaker? The main gun of the Eclipse class was destroyed on the prototype ship, making the cost of replication exceedingly high. Moreover, the outcomes of replicating the experiment are uncertain, Lila Blissex explained directly. With the Executor class design, the demands on the main gun are not as stringent as those for the Eclipse class. In light of this, initiating the Executor class project is our only chance to align the development of this superstar destroyer with the ongoing war efforts. The Executor class project, Little Quarter mused. Even so, completing the design and finalization of the Executor class remains a monumental task. From our perspective, it's a daunting challenge. I doubt we can meet the speaker's expectations. Lila Blissex scoffed. Do you really think the Kuat Drive Yards will shirk responsibility for such a significant incident? The current head of Kuat, Onana Quarter, should be more aware of this than anyone. Little Quarter looked at the woman before him. She was of average height and appearance, but he held a deep respect for her. Not solely for her ship design capabilities, which, while commendable, did not surpass her father's legendary work. Willix Blissex had independently designed epoch-making battleships such as the Cheerers and Hunters, setting a standard Lila had yet to surpass. Little Quarter, having worked closely with her, was well aware of Lila Blissex's limitations in design. However, Lila remained the chief engineer of Kuat Drive Yards for two key reasons. First, the legacy of a talented designer that surrounded Lila. Although this legacy stemmed from her father, its symbolic significance far outweighed its actual value. This legacy alone had convinced many members of the Galactic Senate, including Speaker Sheev Palpatine, of the prowess of the warships designed and manufactured by Kuat Drive Yards, ensuring a steady stream of orders. Second, Lila's astute political acumen. She had a knack for navigating the political landscape, often making decisions that outpaced many seasoned politicians. After Willix Blissex's departure, Quat Drive Yards not only maintained but amplified Lila's status, dedicating extensive resources to support the battleships she designed. The Knight and Consul classes were such creations. The incident at the Quat industrial sector had indeed infuriated the Republic's speaker, Sheev Palpatine. He had summoned Onana Quarter to his office for a reprimand and imposed severe sanctions on Quat Drive Yards. Palpatine's greatest frustration stemmed from the destruction of the Eclipse-class prototype ship. His plan had been to deploy the Eclipse-class as a spearhead in a decisive strike against the Dawn Star, aiming to obliterate the Dead Angel's stronghold in one swift blow. However, with the prototype destroyed and the project halted, Palpatine could almost envision the Dead Angel's smug satisfaction upon hearing the news. In a fortunate turn, the proposal of the Executor-class project offered a glimmer of hope. At a crucial moment, Lila Blissex proposed the plan for the Executor-class Superstar Destroyer. Unlike the Eclipse-class, the Executor-class was envisioned as a mass-produced super battleship. While it lacked the Eclipse-class's planet-destroying super main gun, the Executor-class compensated with an arsenal of 5,000 heavy-duty turbo-laser cannons, making it a formidable force capable of decimating any opposing battleship. Lila Blissex, employing a wealth of technical jargon that was both impressive and persuasive, informed Emperor Palpatine of the inherent risks associated with some of the design concepts of the Eclipse-class's super main gun, including several identified vulnerabilities. However, inspired by insights from Ta, he captured separatist scientist Dr. Zhang Jiarui. She proposed the development of a new, invincible main cannon powered by kyber crystals. This ambitious design would require significant resources and time to realize. In the interim, the Executor-class Superstar Destroyer was presented as a sufficient countermeasure against the Separatists. Blissex assured Palpatine that their analysis had determined the Executor-class's firepower vastly exceeded the capabilities of the Separatists' Xuanwu Titan battleship, guaranteeing its destruction. Onana Quarter, standing by, confidently assured Palpatine that the quarter-power shipyard would expand upon its initial investment in the Eclipse-class project, committing hundreds of billions of credits to expedite the Executor-class's development. Convinced by these arguments, Palpatine approved the Executor-class Superstar Destroyer plan. He recognized the importance of moving forward and preparing for future challenges. This decision was further influenced by intelligence from his advisor, Black Hole, regarding the rescue of Dr. Zhang Jiarui by two of the most formidable Dark Jedi warriors under the command of Dead Angel, including Depa Billaba. Palpatine understood that the Kuat Power Dockyard's defenses could not have withstood an assault by such powerful adversaries, especially when they wielded the ancient Sith artifact, the Mirror Amulet. The potential threat posed by the Mirror Amulet, capable of devastating even Coruscant, underscored the urgency of strengthening their military capabilities. Another compelling reason for Palpatine's approval was the Executor-class's sheer size, surpassing even the Eclipse-class at an astonishing length of over 19,000 meters. This design philosophy aligned perfectly with the Tarkin doctrine Palpatine advocated, instilling fear and exerting control through the display of overwhelming power, thereby ensuring dominion across the galaxy. In the depths of an unending darkness, Edra Caddis found herself engulfed in a world of pain, anger, and fear. Her cries echoed through the abyss, a place where the dark side's relentless force sought to extinguish the last flickers of light within her heart. On the planet Korriban, within the Valley of the Dark Lord, the souls of countless Sith specters, once dormant, now surged towards her, each one eager to shred her very essence. The torment was unbearable, a cycle of being torn asunder from soul to body, driving Edra to the brink of despair. The thought of ending her own life to escape the ceaseless agony tempted her, yet a lingering voice within cautioned against such an act. To commit suicide under the watchful eye of Darth Malthael, the Master of Death, could very well mark the beginning of an even more excruciating torment. As Sith ghosts swarmed her, the dark side's deathly embrace tightened, refining Edra's connection to the dark side, making it darker, purer, It was a tradition among Sith Lords to bring their apprentices to such forsaken places, remnants of the old Sith Empire, to immerse them in the dark side's fury. Darth Plagueis, for instance, had brought his apprentice to the ruins of the City Empire on the Sokoran satellite to steep in the dark side's raw power. This ritual was not only meant to strengthen the apprentice's dark side force, but also to kindle a deep-seated hatred for the Galactic Republic and the Jedi Order, fueling their power further. However, Darth Malthael's approach with Edra was distinct. The Sith ghosts under his command, swirling around Edra, did not carry the usual disdain for the Republic or the Jedi. Instead, they bore a singular focus: ambition. Darth Malthael's ambition, to be precise. An ambition that knew no bounds, aiming to conquer not just the galaxy but the entire universe, obliterating any obstacle, be it the Republic, the Jedi, or even the Fourth Civilization itself. This ambition was not born from mere circumstance, but was a reflection of Tang Xiao's own boundless aspirations. Since the moment he accessed the Mothership database, Tang Xiao harbored a vision so vast it could easily be mistaken for a noble cause, masking the true extent of his ambition. His patience and discretion meant that his true intentions remained veiled until the moment was right. Now Darth Malthael sought to instill this very ambition in Edra Caddis, not as a mere apprentice, but as a devoted servant of darkness, an instrument of his will. He required no hatred from her, only allegiance, to dismantle any who dared stand in the way of his grand design, under the banner of Darth Lilim. Collapsed to her knees, Edra was at her limit. The desire to end it all, to find solace in eternal sleep, was overwhelming, yet a grim reminder echoed in her mind. To succumb to sleep here would be to join the valley's countless tormented souls, perhaps to suffer an even worse fate. Amidst the harrowing assault of Sith ghosts, Edra Caddis was warned that she might lose even the last shred of her consciousness. An ancient voice unexpectedly resonated within her, prompting her to look up abruptly. Before her stood an old man, clad in a simple robe. His once lustrous hair was now a disheveled crew cut, his eyes were covered with a strip of grimy cloth, and he leaned on a tree branch for support. "Is it really you, Lucien Del Rey?" Edra Caddis whispered in disbelief. This man was none other than Lucien Del Rey, the revered final leader of the Jedi Covenant from 4,000 years prior. After the dissolution of the Covenant, he lost his sight but used the last of the organization's resources to purchase the Del Rey 2 satellite. There, he endeavored to erect a grand temple in hopes of reviving the Jedi Covenant. However, his blindness led him to a profound realization, prompting him to abandon his quest. The Del Rey 2 satellite lay forgotten until Tang Xiao discovered it. Under the influence of Darth Malthael's malevolent force, Lucien's indomitable spirit began to stir once more. He entrusted the gauntlet of Leclash to Malthael and took refuge within it. Unbeknownst to others, Lucien had formed a profound bond with Edra Caddis upon their first encounter, captivated by the unwavering light within her heart. Despite being engulfed in darkness so dense that it seemed imperceptible, that light persisted. Lucien, in his blindness, perceived more of the future than most and resolved to aid Edra Caddis. Yet, Darth Malthael's dark power was formidable, and Lucien struggled to prevent Edra from being drawn deeper into the abyss under Malthael's guidance. "Indeed, it is I, Lucien Del Rey," he confirmed, his voice laden with sorrow. "Darth Malthael is advancing further into the dark side, a path that appears unstoppable." Edra Caddis, her mind nearly consumed, murmured, "If there's no way to halt the Master, then let it be. The Master is destined for this. He will dominate the galaxy, spreading his renown across the cosmos." "No, that is not the future I foresee," Lucien Del Rey countered. "Darth Malthael might indeed conquer the galaxy, but what he will usher in is not dominion and governance, but rather death and destruction." Vol 2, Chapter 1483, Lucien Del Rey's Plan, Part 2. Death, destruction. "It's good. Let the Master destroy this galaxy." Edra Caddis murmured, lost in a trance of dark thoughts. "That's not what Darth Malthael truly desires," Lucien Del Rey corrected gently, observing Edra Caddis's troubled state. "His ambition is to conquer the galaxy, not to annihilate it. If the Milky Way were to vanish, who would be left for him to rule over?" This reasoning seemed to spark a flicker of clarity in Edra Caddis's eyes. "No, what the Master opposes must never come to pass. she exclaimed, a newfound determination in her voice. Lucian sighed, his voice taking on a somber tone. Through the vast expanse of the Force, I have witnessed much. I saw the downfall of Darth Malthael, watched as he was engulfed by shadows and death, losing all control. Death and darkness spread across everything, starting from the Dawn Star. Master, you must not falter, Master. You must maintain control. Edraketis implored. Lucian continued. Darth Malthael seeks to delve into the deepest shadows, believing that only by mastering the darkness can he break the barriers between shadow and light, merging them into one. He once argued that without comprehending the deepest darkness and the brightest light, one cannot speak of their unity. He was correct. However, he paused, chuckling ruefully. Once he ventured into the deepest shadows, how could he possibly find his way back? The Force isn't a simple choice between left and right, nor is it child's play that can be altered at whim. The Force encompasses everything in this universe, from matter to the soul. It embodies the principles governing all existence, and it cannot be bent to one's will. I wanted to aid the Master, Edraketis whispered. I had hoped you would be the last beacon of purity in Darth Malthael's heart, but it seems that was a futile wish. Far from sowing seeds of light because of you, he instead drew you into even deeper darkness, Lucian revealed with a heavy heart. There is still light within the Master's heart, Edraketis murmured, her voice ethereal, clinging to hope. Now I understand that the light you speak of is his grand ambition. Lucian shook his head, a note of sadness in his voice. Yet it won't prevent him from spiraling out of control in the future. He will become a nexus of death and darkness, and the Dawn Star will be at the heart of this dark maelstrom, consuming everything in its path. I want to help the Master, Edraketis repeated, her resolve unwavering. I have devised a plan, a final gambit, Lucian declared solemnly. A plan? You wish to kill the Master? Edraketis' eyes flashed with a hint of murderous intent, misunderstanding his intent. No, I wish for him to rediscover the light, Lucian clarified. If successful, he might finally grasp the true nature of the Force. If we fail, it could spell the end for the galaxy. Master, the Master will surely master the unity of the Force. He will reign supreme. Edraketis affirmed, her faith unshaken. Then now only you can aid him, Lucian stated firmly. Your connection with Darth Malthael is unparalleled. The bond between your souls is profoundly deep. You alone have the power to reach him. What should I do? Edraketis asked, her resolve softening at the prospect of truly being able to help her Master. Release your mind and body, let the darkness engulf you, and plunge into a shadow deeper than that which Darth Malthael has known, Lucian instructed. No, I don't want it. I don't want it. Edraketis suddenly cried out, tears streaming down her face. Despite her previously dull expression, her soul now radiated an immense sorrow. Lucian Del Rey's words threatened to extinguish her last glimmer of hope. As Darth Malthael had previously stated, Edraketis had not fully succumbed to the dark side. Despite her outward appearance of madness, cruelty, and belligerence, her soul remained untouched by true darkness. The Force does not deceive, and although she trained under the guise of Darth Lilim alongside Darth Malthael, her strength had scarcely improved. Aware of the gravity of his actions, he summoned Darth Lilim to the Valley of the Dark Lord for the final and most severe baptism of darkness. This was not only a punishment, but also a test of loyalty and strength. However, what tormented Darth Lilim more than the punishment itself were the words of Lucian Del Rey. Lucian's influence was so profound that it made Edraketis willing to sacrifice everything, even her own soul. The question that lingered in the darkness was whether Edraketis, or rather Edraketis, would emerge from this abyss or be lost forever. Edraketis had been shown a vision of the future by Lucian Del Rey through the Force, a future engulfed in death, a future where even Darth Malthael himself was consumed by the very death he sought to control. I will, Edraketis whispered, surrendering completely, her hands spread wide as she abandoned all resistance. A day later, the Red Comet made its descent into the Valley of the Dark Lord once more. The hatch opened, and Darth Malthael, cloaked in black, stepped out. He gazed at his apprentice, who seemed both familiar and foreign, and a satisfied smile crept across his face, hidden beneath his hood. "Ha! Excellent! You finally relinquished the last shred of defiance in your heart, Darth Lilim. That was the most futile part of you. From this moment, you are truly a pawn in my game, destined to conquer the galaxy for me. Ha ha! Darth Malthel's laughter reverberated through the valley. It's my honor, my master, Darth Lilim responded, her voice low and resonant, seeming to emanate from every direction. Now you must kill, Darth Malthel commanded with a sinister grin. Forget sitting on the planet Ord Mantle, guarding the Interstellar Banking Association and the Fourth Group. No, that's unnecessary. Head to Geth, to the fleet. The northern border of the Milky Way shall be your hunting ground. Go forth, kill, and conquer. Ha! His dark laughter echoed ominously in the valley. No. Anakin Skywalker suddenly awoke, his eyes snapping open as he sat up abruptly. In that moment, he realized he was still in his bed, in the dormitory. Clutching his forehead, he felt the cold sweat covering his body. It was another nightmare, a vision of total destruction that left him shaken. Vol 2, Chapter 1484, Order Number 66. Execute Order 66. 1. For several days, Anakin Skywalker had been plagued by terrible nightmares. The turmoil in Coruscant seemed to mark the beginning of these dreams. Could it be that Darth Sidious, the Sith Lord, had seized control at the highest echelons of the Republic's power? If so, Anakin pondered whether he should prepare to stand and fight alongside the most steadfast members of the Jedi Order. Sitting on the edge of his bed, Anakin took a moment to steady his turbulent emotions before he straightened his attire and stepped out. The Jedi Knights he encountered offered him a mix of hostile and puzzled looks. However, Anakin paid them no mind. He had grown accustomed to such scrutiny. Even before these recent events, his status as the prophesied Chosen One and the insistence of Master Qui-Gon Jinn on his admission to the Jedi Order had made him the subject of much attention since childhood. The Jedi Knights, led by Shaak Ti, were currently in a standoff with the clone army of the Galactic Republic. They had rejected Chancellor Palpatine's request to access their library, leading to a refusal from the Republic to allow the Jedi Order to depart. Negotiations were ongoing, yet no resolution had been reached. Surrounded by 100,000 clone soldiers, the Jedi Order refrained from resorting to violence. Similarly, the Galactic Republic had not initiated force against the Jedi Knights. Instead, they merely surrounded the temple and severed its communications, while still providing food, supplies, and medicine as a superficial gesture of respect. Anakin made his way to the summit of the Jedi Temple, seeking to discuss his troubling nightmares with Shaak Ti, the current leader of the Jedi Order. With many of his friends among the Jedi either dead or gone, Shaak Ti was one of the few he could still confide in. She had always shown him kindness, even when she was a member of the Supreme Council. Upon reaching the top of the tower, Anakin found Shaak Ti in a tense discussion with several Jedi Masters about the current situation. It seemed she was too preoccupied to notice him. Just as he was about to leave, Shaak Ti spotted him and invited him over. "Anakin, do you have something to say? Come here," she said. Anakin approached and found Shaak Ti seated in her usual spot, with Master Yoda's former position still vacant. Yoda was not dead, but had mysteriously disappeared. Although Anakin had brought back this news, the Jedi Order chose to believe it, clinging to hope rather than trust in Anakin himself. "I'm sorry, Anakin. Our situation is indeed dire, yet we must still seek a way forward," Shaak Ti said. "What brings you here?" Anakin nodded, stepping closer. "I've been having the same dream for the past few days," he began. "Jedi Knights don't dream without reason. All dreams are revelations from the Force. Given our circumstances, your dream might offer us some guidance," Shaak Ti responded, encouraging him to continue. "I dreamed of death and destruction. Endless death, endless destruction. Everyone is dead, all life, all civilization destroyed. The galaxy in dead silence," Anakin recounted, his voice trembling with the immense fear and shock the dream had instilled in him. He dared not even contemplate the power responsible for such devastation, fearing that even a glimpse would be too much to bear. Terrible death and destruction loomed ominously in his visions. Shaak Ti furrowed her brow in contemplation. Beside her, Jedi Master Coleman Trebor spoke with a hint of frost in his tone. "The Sith Lord has ascended to the role of Supreme Chancellor of the Galactic Republic. It's not surprising that your Force abilities would foresee a future filled with destruction. The power I sense, though, doesn't emanate from Palpatine. It's someone else, Anakin Skywalker interjected. Are you still defending that Sith Lord? Coleman Trebor demanded, his words slicing through the air and casting a shadow over Anakin's expression. Shakti quickly intervened. Master Trebor, your accusation is quite misplaced. Remember, the galaxy harbors more than one Sith Lord. Darth Malthael's presence is also among us. The Chancellor has informed me that Darth Malthael is currently engaged in a dark ritual on Korriban. Should he succeed, his power will become unimaginably vast and malevolent, Anakin shared. Do you believe your vision pertains to Darth Malthael? Shakti inquired. I can't be certain, but it seems highly probable, Anakin replied, his voice tinged with uncertainty. Shakti exhaled deeply. This is precisely why we must eradicate every Sith Lord. Their very existence poses a mortal danger to the galaxy. Anakin remained silent, his gaze lowered. He was tormented by the intricate connections and loyalties he felt towards these Sith Lords, a web of emotions he couldn't untangle. Rather than dwelling on these conflicts, we must focus on the immediate threat, Coleman Trebor asserted. We need to mobilize all combat-ready Jedi Knights, storm the capital, and eliminate Darth Sidious. If we proceed with that plan, my vision will surely come to pass, Anakin exclaimed, immediately regretting his outburst. Anakin, no justification exists for sparing a Sith Lord. Your tone should not be one of threat. Shakti's voice grew distant. Since Darth Sidious has not confined you, perhaps you should confront him once more for a solution. Failing that, the Jedi Order will take decisive action. Anakin's complexion turned ashen. Such a course of action will lead to countless deaths. Regardless of the outcome, it will deal a crippling blow to the Galactic Republic, especially during this time of war. The state of the Galactic Republic cannot dictate our actions concerning the Force, Shakti countered. This war has forced us to compromise our principles and violate our creeds. That is why we find ourselves in this predicament. The Jedi Order must not cower before a Sith Lord, no matter the tactics he employs, Coleman Trebor added, his words heavy with implication. Anakin understood the gravity of Trebor's statement. It signified the Jedi Order's willingness to sacrifice everything, including innocent lives, to vanquish the Sith Lord. Yet he found himself at a loss for words. After a moment of deep reflection, Anakin finally spoke. I will seek an audience with the Chancellor once more, in hopes of finding a peaceful resolution. Before he could finish, his communicator beeped. Anakin glanced at it, his expression shifting dramatically. It was a message from Chancellor Palpatine, the man he still referred to as the Speaker of the Galactic Republic. Shakti offered a slight smile and gestured towards the door. Anakin bowed respectfully and exited the chamber, unaware that this would be his last time here as a Jedi Knight. Watching his departure, Coleman Trebor shook his head. He still refers to Darth Sidious as the Chancellor. Deep down, he refuses to accept the truth. Shakti remained silent, her gaze fixed on the direction Anakin had taken, her expression a complex tapestry of emotions. Back in his quarters, Anakin activated the communicator. The holographic projection of Chancellor Palpatine materialized before him, setting the stage for a conversation that would alter the course of his destiny. With his usual gentle demeanor, Palpatine addressed Anakin. I have something to discuss with you, Anakin. Anakin Skywalker, his expression pained, retorted, I don't think I, as a Jedi Knight, should be conversing with a Sith Lord. Palpatine, undeterred, shared something unexpected. I want to talk to you about a recurring dream I've had in recent days, a dream of destruction. Anakin leaped up from his stool, his eyes wide with disbelief. What did you say? You've had this dream too? Under normal circumstances, I would take pleasure in our shared understanding. However, your response only heightens my anxiety. Please, come with me, Palpatine urged. Nodding, Anakin left the dormitory and made his way through the entrance hall of the Jedi Temple, eventually stepping outside. He navigated through the throngs of Jedi Knights who were locked in a standoff with the clone army, making his way directly to the clone troopers' position. In full view of everyone, he boarded a hover vehicle provided by the clone troopers and set off towards the capital. Every Jedi who witnessed this scene was consumed by a sense of inexplicable anger. Sitting in the vehicle, Anakin's communicator buzzed with a message from his secret lover, Naboo counselor Padme Amidala. She was urging him to meet her as soon as possible. After a moment's thought, Anakin sent a message asking her to wait and proceeded directly to the Chancellor's office. Upon his arrival, Palpatine got straight to the point. Dead Angel, Darth Malthael, has succeeded. You're referring to his dark and sinister ritual? Anakin inquired, his brow furrowed. Exactly. He has taken control of the Valley of the Dark Lords. The most significant relic of the ancient Sith Empire now belongs to him, Palpatine explained. But the location of Korriban is beyond the reach of the Separatists. What does he gain by doing this? Anakin pressed. The countless powerful Sith spirits in the Valley of the Dark Lords will become Darth Malthael's most formidable allies. Remember, he wields the power of death. These Sith spirits will only augment his strength, Palpatine elaborated, adding, and perhaps that is the reason behind the dream. So, the destruction in the dream was caused by Darth Malthael? Anakin surmised. You know, Anakin, I would never allow the Galactic Republic to come to harm. Protecting it has been my life's work. Perhaps the Jedi Knights can afford to overlook the Republic, but I cannot. I will defend the Republic to my last breath, Palpatine declared with conviction. But you are a Sith Lord, Anakin countered, his voice heavy with emotion. Do you think I ascended to the chairmanship of the Galactic Republic with the intention of destroying what I have tirelessly worked towards? No. My life's ambition has been to safeguard and strengthen the Republic, to rectify its flaws and vulnerabilities. I will not allow anyone to destroy it, Palpatine passionately argued, then proposed. Let's join forces, defeat the dead angel, protect our galaxy. In a daze, Anakin walked to the other side of the parliamentary building. Along the way, he encountered many members who greeted him warmly, seemingly oblivious to the growing tension between the Republic and the Jedi Order. For some reason, Anakin felt at ease here. Was it because he frequently visited the parliamentary building, or because his lover was also present? He couldn't pinpoint the exact reason, but he sensed a stark contrast to the overwhelming pressure he felt within the Jedi Order. Here, he felt none of that. Upon entering the room, Padme's assistant welcomed Anakin and closed the door behind him. The moment the door shut, a fragrant breeze enveloped him, followed by the warm embrace of Padme, a comforting presence in his tumultuous life.